This morning by thanking the families who dedicated the Kinnos program this morning, to thank Judah and Judy Minkov for dedicating the Kinnos in memory of their beloved daughter Rachel Tova Zichron Livracha Bas Yehuda Avram, Greg and Rina Trestman for dedicating the Kinnos in the merit of a refuah shlema for Malka Bas Devora, Julian and Lauren Hammond for dedicating the Kinnos in memory of Julian's brother Aaron Zichron Livracha Ben David, and Hirsch and Gail Goldberg for dedicating the Kinnos in loving memory of their son, Habachar Yonason Leib Zichron Livracha Ben Moshe Tzvi Halevi. We hope that in the merit of our Kinnos, in the merit of our Achdus, and in the merit of the Meretz Hashem of the Aliyah that we will experience through the incredible and overwhelming pain of this day, may their neshamos have an Aliyah and the families in Nechama. want to begin with an incredible piece that I saw. I didn't get a chance to include it in the packet because I only saw it over Shabbos. It's a beautiful insight by Rav Kashtiel, who is one of the Rashi Yeshiva in Eli, in the pre-military academy of Bnei David, Bnei Eli. And Rav Kashtiel discusses the idea that the Gemara says, Kol mis'abel al Yerushalayim, zoche v'ra b'simchaso. Whoever mourns over Yerushalayim will be privileged to see its consolation, its rebuilding. And the obvious corollary to that is that if a person doesn't mourn for Yerushalayim, they will not be privileged to see its rebuilding. They will not be privileged to see its nechama. And the obvious question is why? It's hard to mourn for Yerushalayim. It's hard to mourn for the Beis Hamikdash. It's hard to mourn for things that occurred 2,000 years ago. The human condition is such that we have difficulty now even connecting to events like the Holocaust, which occurred less than a century ago. All the more so events that occurred 2,000 years ago. There's certainly no eyewitness testimony left. There's no one we could relate to. There's no human connection we can make to that tsar. And yet Chazal tell us that if I want to see the rebuilding of the Beis Hamikdash, if I want to see the rebuilding of Yerushalayim, I want to see the Nechama of Klal Yisrael, I have to share in the pain. And Rav Kashtiel quotes from the Maharal in Netzach Yisrael. I'll just give you, he's Marich, he has a beautiful piece on it. I'll just give you a shortened version by way of introduction. The Maharal explains that the only way to truly want, the only way to truly pine for Mashiach, for Nechama, for consolation, for the rebuilding, is to feel that something is absent, is to feel that something is missing. If I don't feel that anything is missing, if I feel that I'm shalom, if I feel that I'm complete, there's nothing absent in my life, then what do I need Geula for? Then what do I need the Beis Hamikdash for? Then what do I need Mashiach for? It is only if I feel that something is missing, it is only if I feel that something is absent, that I have a drive within myself to complete it, that I have a drive within myself to make it whole. She says that's the meaning of the statement of Chazal. If you feel that something is lacking in life, if you feel that without the Beis Hamikdash, without the 6 million Kedoshim, without the beautiful neshamas in whose merit these Kinnos are dedicated, if you feel that something is absent, then you have a burning desire to make it whole. And I begin with this point because we have a twofold goal this morning. Number one is Tisha B'Av is just a day of Avelos. It's just a day to mourn, like I mentioned last night. That sometimes in life you just have to let the pain flow through you. Not to numb it, not to treat it, not to ignore it, not to pretend like it's not really as bad as you think it is. But sometimes you just have to let yourself experience the pain of the human condition. The pain of Klal Yisrael. The pain of our loss. So part one of Tisha B'Av is just allowing yourself to feel. My friends, I was thinking a lot of very interesting pieces about this year on Tisha B'Av. Number one, somebody pointed out to me yesterday, Shmuel Silber, Ari's son-in-law, pointed out to me yesterday that he saw a quote in the name of Rabbi Chaim Kanievsky that he paskin that you're allowed to learn Daf Yomi on this Tisha B'Av, because actually today's Daf, which Emir Hashem will do this evening, speaks about Aninos, and Davelos speaks about mourning. One of the prohibitions on Tisha B'Av is you're not allowed to learn Torah, only Torah related to the mourning, to the fast, to Churban. So amazing that that piece of learning becomes permitted on this day, and it's a Sunday. And at least in Chutz La'aretz, Sunday gives us the opportunity. Tisha B'Av is often for many of us a very complicated day. because I want to feel the pain and I want to feel the experience. But the world doesn't stop. We're in Galus. We're not in Eretz Yisrael. Our businesses are open. Our jobs are waiting for us. We have to do all the things we have to do on a regular day. But today we don't have to. So I would urge you to take advantage of this day. To just open your heart and to open your soul. With the warning that when you do so on a day like this, it comes with incredible difficulty. Because when you open your heart to the pain of Klal Yisrael, it's like a tidal wave of pain that is going to overtake you. Sometimes we're scared to feel that tidal wave of pain. But I would urge you, don't be scared. Because if you allow yourself to feel that tidal wave of pain, what comes after it is something absolutely magnificent. It is unquenchable thirst and desire for nechama, for consolation, for Mashiach, for Geula. But you can only really want Geula if you first allow yourself to feel the pain. And that is the journey in Yirtzeh Hashem that we are going to take together this morning. Before we start also, I just want to give a few other thank yous. A very special thank you to Moshe Abramson, who always gives up so much of his learning time, of his Tisha B'Av time, of all of his time, so that the Torah we learn here in our beautiful Mikdash Ma'at can Yirtzeh Hashem be spread and be shared with others, even who are not here. A special thank you to our Executive Director, to Julia Shaman, our Office Administrator, Dina Schwartzbaum, all who worked so hard to be able to ensure that all of the different pieces to allow all of us to have a meaningful Tisha B'Av together fall into place. And with that, let's begin. If you look at number 1 in your packet, before we begin, just a word about how the morning is going to go. So those of you who have been here before know that we end up only doing very few of the Kinnos. We spend a lot more on sometimes some of the personal stories, the individual stories, the back stories, kind of lace them into the recitation of Kinnos. So we'll spend a lot of time speaking about the Churban, the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash, the Holocaust, the special focus on the Holocaust. Then we'll recite selected Kinnos which tie into some of the themes of the morning. We also, Baruch Hashem, are privileged to have with us this morning a number of the beautiful Chavra with such beautiful melodious voices who are going to lead us in Shira, a beautiful song throughout the morning. Because sometimes when you have an overwhelming abundance of emotion, words can't convey what you feel. Words can't convey what you think. Sometimes what the spoken word can't do, Shira can truly capture and encapsulate. With that, let's begin with number 1. The Pasuk in Eicha says, B'cho tivkeh b'alayla, v'dimasa lechiya in la menachem mikala hada, kore'eha bagdu ba hayula la'ivim. Moving Pasuk in the beginning of Eicha. B'cho tivkeh b'alayla. She cries at night. The Navi Yirmiyahu refers to Yerushalayim as a young, forsaken woman who spends the nighttime hours crying in desperation. And the Medrash in number 2 wonders, why at night? B'cho tivkeh b'alayla. Lama b'alayla. You tell me that she cried. Why do you have to tell me that she cried at night? And writes the Medrash, Lefi she'in hakol holech ela b'alayla. Because sound travels at night in a dramatically different way. Meaning what? That during the day, there's all a number of different things that are happening all around us, which often diffuse the sound. Nighttime, there's less happening, and so the sound travels further. And the Medrash tells a story. So there was once a story of a woman who lived in the same neighborhood as Rabbi Gamliel. V'hayala ben tishchores. She had a young child, Umes, and her precious son died. V'haisa bocha alav balayla. And this poor bereaved mother would cry for this precious little boy each and every night. Rabbi Gamliel would be awakened by her cries each and every night. And he would remember the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash, and he would cry along with her. The Medrash quotes that he cried so much that literally his eyelashes fell out. The Talmidim saw that this nightly crying, this nightly mourning was having a detrimental impact on Rabbi Gamliel's health. And they decided to move him. And the Medrash is so moving on so many different levels. First of all, Rabbi Gamliel felt the pain of this bereaved mother. And every night as she cried herself to sleep, Rabbi Gamliel cried along with her. So the Medrash doesn't simply say that Rabbi Gamliel cried along with her because he empathized with her pain. But there's something additional that's happening over here. Rabbi Gamliel, when he heard her cries, he cried with her, but for the Churban. Somehow the cries over the loss of her child awakened within him a sense of national loss for Klal Yisrael, the loss of the Beis HaMikdash. And in number 3, the Minchas Rav Asher Reis Shlita asks a very profound question in paragraph Aleph. U'lechori yipalei v'chi ma ze inyon l'churban Beis HaMikdash v'lo tzaras yochid yesh kan tragdia ishit ve'enoshit hizu v'leiv mi lo yispalet l'shma b'chiyah shel im Yehudiya ben tishchor shemesla ach ma inyon l'churban Beis HaMikdash. So the Minchas Asher asked the obvious question: whose heart would not be broken over the cries of a bereaved parent? We've heard those cries. We've experienced those cries. We've been with those bereaved parents. We've been at those levayas. We've been at those kfuras and at those shiva homes. Even a heart of stone is reduced to tears when in the company of a bereaved parent mourning for their beloved child. But what does it have to do with the Churban Beis HaMikdash? What does it have to do with the loss? And Rav Weiss writes something beautiful. He says, paragraph Beis, V'yesh mishiyir tzalomar, da'achem in kol kesher ben b'chiyah shel isha zu u'bein Churban Beis HaMikdash. So the simple answer is they have nothing to do with one another. They're two separate tragedies. The loss of a bereaved mother is a personal loss. The loss of the Beis HaMikdash is a national loss. But Rabbi Gamliel channeled the pain. He took his empathic pain that he felt over the loss for this mother, over the loss of this little boy, and he channeled it into the collective loss of Klal Yisrael. But the pains, the losses, are really independent and unconnected. Paragraph Gimel. Ach shtei tshuvas b'davar. Chad ha'kebod shekavu chazal ma'as azual ha'pasek v'chotiv kebalayla v'dimasa alechiyah. So the Minchas Asher says that no, but it can't be. Because Chazal are bringing down this episode on the pasuk in Eicha, which is telling you that somehow there is a connection between this personal loss of this mother and the Churban Beis HaMikdash. Turn to paragraph Daled. Vanira bazeh pashut hadavar. The Beis HaMikdash einenu rak l'shem akravas karbanos bilvad. So you see, my friends, here, the Minchas Asher tells us something very important. You know, what is it that we mourn when we mourn the Beis HaMikdash? What is it? Are we mourning a building? Are we mourning a building? No. See, buildings come and go. And the truth is, leaving politics or religious sensitivities aside, if we wanted to rebuild the third Beis HaMikdash today, so Baruch Hashem, Klal Yisrael owns the Harabayis. Again, like I said, I'm not making a political statement or wading in to the political or religious or geographic sensitivities. But buildings can be built. Buildings come and go. We don't mourn a building when it comes to the Beis HaMikdash. It's not what we mourn. And the truth is, so what is it? Maybe we mourn the inability to offer up karbanos. That's not totally true either. Because, there are many commentaries who explain that even today, you could offer up karbanos. Sacrifices do not require the actual structure of the Beis HaMikdash. They just need the makom, they just need the place, the harabayis. So buildings I can build, karbanos I could offer. So what is it that we mourn when we mourn the absence of the Beis HaMikdash? In paragraph Dalid, second line. Ela beis bayis makom hashras ashchinahi. Ubeis hadom raglav yisbarach shemo. V'ashras hashchina inyana ha'aras panav yisbarach shemo lebinav ahuvav. Ha'aras panav midas harachamim. V'kasher midas harachamim shora al Yisrael zochim heim lechayim tobim va'aruchim. Ach avatov v'chesed yirdefu. You see, when the Beis HaMikdash stood, there was a hashras hashchina. The Beis HaMikdash was the Ribono Shel Olam's home, which meant that when the Ribono Shel Olam had a home in this world, his presence was more acutely felt in this world. The Shechina was here with us. We say, as we teach our children, Hashem is here, Hashem is there, Hashem is truly everywhere. It's emes, it's true. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is everywhere. The Shechina is everywhere. But at the end of the day, when there was a Beis HaMikdash, there was a real home for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. There was a place for Hashras HaShechina. And when the Shechina rested in the Beis HaMikdash, the Shechina spread out over all of humanity, over the entire world. When the Shechina was here in this world, the world was better. The world was pure. Divine Chesed was here with us. Paragraph A. V'zeh l'uma zeh churban Beis HaMikdash. Lo bita hatmidim bilvad yeshba, ela af siluk hashchina, uschiluk hashchina hester panim, vehester panim midas hadinhu, vekasher midas hadin mushalas bekibas chayenu, im chayesavo yisro machov. Says the Minchas Asher so profoundly. And when there is no Beis HaMikdash, what is it that we mourn? Again, not the absence of a building, not the absence of karbanos. We mourn the absence of the Shechina. Because when the Shechina is not here, that puts us in a state of Hester Panim. Somehow the Shechina is hidden from us. Somehow the Ribono Shel Olam is not here with us in a way that he once was. And when that happens, things don't go the way they're supposed to. Things happen that kiviyachol shouldn't happen. Events occur that if the Shechina was here with us would not have occurred. Tsar is experienced that if the Shechina was here would prevent it. Pain happens that if the Shechina would here would proactively prevent it from occurring. When the Beis HaMikdash is not here, the Shechina is not here. And when the Shechina is not here, it opens the door for all types of heartbreaking events. And writes the Minchas Asher in paragraph Ches Bezeh, Pesher b'chiyuv shel Rabbi Gamliel. Kasher shomehu es Shechinasa bocha b'leilos al b'na katan shemes al paneha. Roehu bebechi zeh bitui l'churban habayis. Says the Minchas Asher. Every single night that Rabbi Gamliel heard that poor mother crying over her son. Rabbi Gamliel began to cry also. And part of it was empathy. But part of it was a historical, because Rabbi Gamliel said, how could it be that a mother is burying her child? How could it be that parents are burying their children? My friends, we're going to spend a lot of time speaking about children and the loss of children over the course of these Kinnos. And maybe it's because that as a Kehillah, we We've experienced these tragedies with the loss of Rachel Minkov, Zichron Livracha, who was a child who had barely begun to start her adult life. Kobe Rosemore, Zichron Livracha, Levi Chaim Strauss, Zichron Livracha. There is nothing more unnatural in this world than to have to see parents go through that unspeakable pain of saying goodbye to a beloved child. And when Rabbi Gamliel saw this young mother crying over her beloved child each and every night, he said, these events could only occur in a world that doesn't have a Beis HaMikdash. Because in a world which has a Beis HaMikdash, there's a seder, there's an order. In a world which has a Beis HaMikdash, the Ribono Shel Olam resides here with us, and when HaKadosh Baruch Hu resides here with us, He doesn't allow these aberrations to occur. So there's a mother mourning over her beloved son. It could only happen because we're in a state of Hester Panim, an element of removal of HaKadosh Baruch Hu from our midst, which is a manifestation of the absence of the Beis HaMikdash. So every single night when this young mother would cry, Rabbi Gamliel would cry not over the stones of the building of the Beis HaMikdash, not because of his inability to bring karbanos in the Beis HaMikdash, but because, Ribono Shel Olam, when you left us, when you lifted your presence from that structure and allowed our enemies to overtake it, to destroy it, to burn it, and then to till the very soil upon which it sat, you left us a little bit. And when you left us, your departure paved the way for these hurtful and tragic events to occur. And so every night when this young woman mourned over her child, Rabbi Gamliel davened. He cried not only for the loss of the Beis HaMikdash, but for the restoration of the Beis HaMikdash. Ribono Shel Olam lo zu haderech. This is not the way. This is not the world in which we can endure. This is not the life that we deserve. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, bring your Shechina back. Bring your Beis HaMikdash back. Restore equilibrium to this world. We know that when your Beis HaMikdash comes back, we know there will still be challenges, there will still be difficulties, there will still be trials and tribulations. But there will be a seder, there will be an order. And then Chasasher goes on and he says, for many of us, Tisha B'Av is a struggle because, again, we can't relate to a Beis HaMikdash. 2,000 years we haven't had it. 2,000 years we haven't had it. So I'm going to cry for something I never knew. I'm going to cry for something I never had. But then Chasasher says, if you understand that the absence of the Beis HaMikdash is the result or is the cause for every tragic aberration that we encounter, then suddenly I can mourn for it. Because I yearn to have a world restored to what it should be. I yearn to have a world restored to that natural equilibrium where, although death is a part of the fabric of the human condition, but we want it to be children who bury parents and never chas v'shalom the opposite. And that's what we're going to focus on this morning. That the world is so broken in the absence of a Beis HaMikdash. The world is so deficient in the absence of the Beis HaMikdash. But again, not because of the building, but because when the Beis HaMikdash is here, the Shechina is here. And when the Shechina is here, there is that element of universal equilibrium. If you look at number 4, source number 4 on page 3 of your source sheet, you'll see the great tzaddik, Rabbi Nachman of Breslov, says that this is in fact what we try to accomplish with Kinnos. The Rebbe says in the Kutei Moharan, number 4, paragraph A, Isa b'zar HaKadosh shateku hane'amar b'shas hu b'chinas mechuser tikun. So the Rebbe makes an amazing observation. He says, sometimes the Gemara has a machlokas. And in that machlokas, in that dispute, the Gemara sometimes ends off by saying teku. Teku means it's a good question and there's no resolution. Teku is an acronym for Tish b'yitares kushos v'ibayos. We have to wait for Mashiach, we have to wait for Eliyahu Navi sometimes to come to answer all of our questions. But he says something amazing. He says teku is the same derivative word as tikkun. Tikkun means to fix something, to make something whole. So what is teku? Teku is the tikkun without the nun. I'm deficient. I'm missing something. The question stands, I don't have the answer. Shenechsar hanun shel tikkun v'na'asa teku. But then the Rebbe says something amazing in paragraph B. V'da shezos hanun pshuta kishenechsaras me'atikun v'na'asa b'chinas teku kaniskalel hazay nishpelas v'nichfefes v'na'asa mizeh b'chinos Kinnos shu'usios tikun rakshanun nichfefes kiniskalel. So the Rebbe says something amazing. If you look at Kinnos, what is Kinnos? Kinnos is all the same letters as Tikkun. They're just in a different order. Says the Rebbe, what are we trying to do today? As we said, as we started, we're mourning, we're feeling the pain. But the goal is the Tikkun. We want to fix this. We want to change this. We want it to somehow, some way become better. We don't want to spend our lives, we don't want our children spending their lives in this world of Hester Panim, in this world where HaKadosh Baruch Hu is hidden. Today we're going to say Kinnos, but we say Kinnos for the purpose of affecting Tikkun, somehow fixing things, of unscrambling the letters of Kinnos and somehow making them into fixing, making them into Tikkun. Hashem yigalenu v'yishapchu ha-Kinnos l'Tikkun v'yistakin hatiku ha-niskalael. So the Rebbe says our ultimate goal is to take the Kinnos, somehow transform and rearrange the letters into Tikkun, and somehow be able to answer the Teku. And we mourn. We're going to spend a lot of time this morning focusing on the Holocaust. And for reasons I think that are obvious. Number one, because it's the Churban that I think we can most easily connect to. As many of us come from families of survivors, many of us perhaps know the dwindling community of survivors. It's the most recent Churban of Klal Yisrael. Also because I feel in my heart that there is an incredible danger of it being forgotten and minimized. But just so you understand, the Churbanos of Klal Yisrael are ongoing. From the 21-year-old soldier who from the Givati brigade who was killed by a Palestinian sniper on Erev Shabbos, whose Levaya is today. If you look on page 35, we also mourn today all of the various victims of terror. I thought to myself maybe about devoting Kinnos in the morning to just even the victims of terror. Because sometimes their stories are very quickly forgotten as well. And I want to share with you one story. On page 35 you could see over here, Hodaya Nechama Asulin. From the community of Mavo Choron. And her story, I think, is one that highlights sometimes the incredible, profound pain of Klal Yisrael. And you could read a little bit of her story over here. Hodaya Nechama Asulin, 21, succumbed to her wounds on November 22nd, 2017, from a terror attack in 2011 that left her with severe brain damage. She leaves behind her parents and 6 brothers and sisters. The attack took place when Hodaya was only 14 years old. She was waiting for a bus home to Avo Choron near the Jerusalem Convention Center. Suddenly there was a massive explosion right near where she was sitting. Terrorists had planted a powerful bomb in a bag behind the bus stop. The explosion damaged her brainstem. She remained in a vegetative state for the past 6 years. For 2 years, Hodaya lived at Alin, a world-renowned children's rehabilitative hospital. However, her condition did not improve, and doctors came to the decision to move her home. The family prepared a room in their home for the move. She lived there for 4 years. 2 weeks before her death, her condition had slowly deteriorated. At her funeral, her mother Michal spoke about how fortunate the family was to be with her for her brief life. So there's 2 things that struck me about this story. See, we think about the victims of terror attacks, and we feel the pain for their families. But stories like this, where the pain continues long after the attack is forgotten. For 6 long years, a 14-year-old girl hovered between life and death. You know, her mother was a very moving video clip of the hesped of the eulogy that her mother delivered. And her parents, who are obviously exceptionally strong people, describes how privileged they felt to have her at home. And her mother describes how every Shabbos they would hold Kabbalah Shabbos in Hodaya's room. And they would sing and they would dance. I put this picture of Hodaya on the page here that was taken when she was 13 years old. She's a beautiful, sweet young girl who I'm sure had so much to contribute in this world. So much to give, who had dreams, who had aspirations. And it's for her and for so many others that we know. Because Tisha B'Av is about, I believe, not connecting with the millions, but it's about connecting with the individual. Understanding the individual story. Because just like Rabbi Gamliel, who cried because of the Churban, not because of the million Jews who fell in the destruction of Yerushalayim, not because of the Asara Harugei Malchus, the 10 martyrs, not because of all the Jews who had been butchered under Hadrianic persecution. What brought him to tears over the Churban was not the plight of the many, but it was the plight of the one. It was the plight of the mother crying for her children. So for us, we're going to connect with Tisha B'Av is through the plight of the one as well. The plight of the young mother crying over her child, the plight of Hodaya Nechama Asulin, who was injured at 14, but who was with her family until the age of 21. I want to share with you another story of the one. If you go back to source number 5, page 4 in your packet, to me this was an especially moving story that I want to share with you. This is from a sefer titled Ani Ma'ani, which is an incredible sefer filled with stories of spiritual courage during the Holocaust. And there's a story that's told here titled Yom HaRabbanim. Sachli Rav Gustman. This story is told about the great tzaddik Rabbi Yisrael Zev Gustman. Rav Gustman was born in 1908 and died in 1991. And Rav Gustman is probably known to many because Rav Gustman started a small yeshiva that is still present today. It's a yeshiva in Rechavia known as Netzach Yisrael. And Rav Gustman, although his yeshiva never really drew throngs of people, his yeshiva was quite interesting because he used to give a shir every single Thursday, and the shir would attract a cross-section of personalities from Eretz Yisrael. All different types of people. Scholars, Supreme Court judges, academics, religious, non-religious, sabras, transplants. Rav Gustman was one of these unique personalities who was able to transcend all divides and become a true Klal Yisrael personality. So the story is told. Hama'asa haya the 13th Biyuli 1941, the 13th of July 1941, b'matzei Shabbos erev Shavasar b'Tammuz, shechal kinitche b'Rishon b'Shavua. B'shteimisrei b'layla hiskarva mechonit l'chatzer. 12 o'clock at night, a car drives into the chatzer, drives into the courtyard. Misocha yatzu shlosha Germanim v'litoy echad. From the car jumped out 3 Germans and 1 Lithuanian. Kan gar Rav Gustman? Does Rav Gustman live here? Rav Gustman answered the door. Anihu, yes. His chilu Germanim makim osa al rosho. The Germans started hitting him over the head. Lama sakuni sha'al. Yan kirav hanach. So Rav Gustman said, surprised, why are you beating me? They said, why are we beating you? You're a rabbi. Yan kirav hanach. Bebayis kam sha'on. Ein yodeh ba'atzmo. Kitzar hitzliach li'chalitz miyadayim. Somehow Rav Gustman manages to run away. Livroach lachatzu distater sham bein sichei tapuchi adam ha'atzavuvim. Rav Gustman somehow manages to escape. He runs and he hides in the garden among the potato sacks. Mirachok shama ki ha'germanim mechapsim oso ki nichnasim legina v'hinehem omdim kvar al yado ha'echad darach alav ba'avru ben arugos beraglov harav pasach ba'amiras vidui. The Germans are walking in the garden. Rav Gustman said they literally stepped on top of him. He was so sure they were going to discover him. He said vidui, the pre-death confession. Kishanelmu hagermanim shalcholo shoras hachatzar notzaris mechonos tispores umitznefes hugazas as zekano chavash eskova hagoyim l'rosho. After the Germans left, Rav Gustman borrowed a pair of clippers, a shaver from a neighbor, shaved off his beard, shaved off his payas, wore the irregular commoner's Gentile cap, and he hid. B'meshach kol yom shavasar b'Tammuz hischali arav eitzel echad hashchinim. L'macharas nodelo ki bayom avru ha'germanim berishima b'yadam al pnei dirosem shel kol ha'rabanim ba'ir medira l'dira v'chomisha nimtza b'beis nilchach itam yom ha'rabanim kach nikra hayom ahu achar kach. This day, which was the 14th of July, 1941, became known in Lithuania as the Day of the Rabbis, the day in which the Nazis, Yamach Shemam, the Zichram, and their Lithuanian collaborators rounded up all the rabbis. Rav Gustman was saved through incredible divine intervention. When I saw this story, I had heard of Rav Gustman and read snippets of his story throughout the ages. But I want to share with you his story today. You know, my friends, I feel there's one more word of clarification necessary. You know, sometimes when I give shiurim, so we try to make the shiurim intellectually interesting, a little bit of lamdas, achakira, this maramakum, that maramakum. So that's not Tisha B'Av. Tisha B'Av is not a day of the intellect. Tisha B'Av is a day of the heart. So I'm sharing with you stories. They're not my stories, they're just stories that I collected, put down on paper with all of you. So let's read them and experience them together. So you can see on page 4, I gave you a little bit of the background of Rav Gustman. Rav Gustman was a Talmudic genius. Now the amazing part is, he became very close with the great tzaddik Rav Chaim Ozer Grzinski, who was the head of European Jewry prior to World War II. Rav Gusman became a dayan, became a rabbinical judge on the Beis Din of Rav Chaim Moser. He was the youngest judge to ever be appointed to this particular Beis Din. World War II breaks out, and as we already begin to see, Rav Gustman avoids escape a variety of times until he is finally captured. Take a look at the last paragraph on page 4. On one occasion, the Nazis decided to liquidate all the Jews in the Vilna labor camp. Rav Gustman and other Jews were marched to the Panri forest outside of Vilna and lined up at the edge of a long pit. An SS man walked down the line of Jews and shot them in the head one by one, after which each one fell backwards into the pit. When the SS guard came to Rav Gustman, he shot him in the head as well. Rav Gustman felt the bullet and fell into the pit as the others had, assuming he was dying. But once in the pit, he found that he could move his hands and feet. He was alive. He lay still until the Nazis had finished their work and then untangled himself from all of the corpses and pulled himself out of the pit. Rav Gustman attributed his survival in that instance to an open miracle. The bullet was actually embedded in his skull, though was invisible, and no apparent wound had been inflicted. On another occasion, page 5, in the Panari forest, Rav Gustman was present when Jewish families were brought. A pit had been dug and the men were separated to stand on one side of the pit while the women and children stood on the other side. The Nazis then took the children out of their mother's arms, flung them up in the air, and shot them while they were still in the air, after which they would fall into or be buried or hurled into the pit. Mothers would run up to the Nazis and beg to be killed first so as not to witness the death of their children. Seeing this horrific scene, Rav Gustman could not hold himself back and determined to speak to the hearts of the executioners. He approached the Nazi officer in charge of the massacre and requested permission to speak with him. In response, the Nazi bashed him in the head with the butt of his rifle, and Rav Gustman fell to the ground bleeding from a gash in his head. When he later lived in Jerusalem, Rav Gustman used to stand and watch the children march through the streets each year during the Jerusalem Day Parade, and he explained, "My eyes that have seen children murdered can appreciate the sight of children marching in joy through the streets of Jerusalem." But here, my friends, I want to share with you an episode that to me is one of the most dramatic. Rav Gustman had only one son, Meir Hashem Yikum Damo, whom he called Merka. He was the apple of Rav Gustman's eye, a boy as sweet and beautiful as any little boy one could imagine. During an action against the children of Vilna Ghetto, the SS found the improvised hiding place that Rav Gustman had found for 4-year-old Merka. Rav Gustman lifted the boy and held him in his arms to protect him. But the Nazis beat the boy as Rav Gustman held him, until blood flowed all over his father's body. When they were convinced the little boy was dead, they pushed Rav Gustman and his son into a pile of manure. Rav Gustman washed and buried his precious son's body himself and took off the boy's shoes, which he exchanged for bread for his starving wife and daughter. His usual procedure was to divide all of the food he managed to obtain, giving the largest portion to his daughter, the next largest portion to his wife, and the smallest portion for himself. This time, as he tried to consume his portion of bread, he found himself unable to do so. He felt as he was consuming his own son's flesh, as it is written, "You shall eat the flesh of your children." The story then goes on to discuss how Rav Gustman ultimately escaped, became a partisan in the forest. And if you take a look at number 6, the middle of the page, there's a section there that's titled "Saved by the Garden." Prior to the war, Rav Gustman was traveling outside Vilna with his teacher, the sage Rav Chaim Ozer. Rav Chaim pointed to a cave and said, "Remember this cave." Rav Gustman had no idea why. Further en route, Rav Chaim Ozer spent a great deal of time pointing out to Rav Gustman various plants, explaining which types were good to eat and which were poisonous. At the time, Rav Gustman was puzzled. What made Rav Chaim Ozer, whose sole pursuit was Torah study, spend his time on a lesson in botany? But during the war years, as Rav Gustman and his family hid from the Nazis in the forest, they were dependent on whatever wild plants he could gather for nourishment. He then understood the importance of that lesson and credited Rav Chaim Ozer with prophetic foresight in instructing him on the techniques of wilderness survival. After the war, Rav Gustman lived in America, eventually made his way to Jerusalem, where he headed a prominent yeshiva, Netzach Yisrael. Until the end of his days, as a mark of gratitude toward the plants which he owed his life, Rav Gustman personally served as the gardener of the yeshiva building in Yerushalayim. And there's another very well-known ma'aseh, a very well-known story about Rav Gustman, an account written by Rabbi Ari Khan. You could see it, it's in page 6, source number 6 in your packet. Many years ago, when I was a relatively young yeshiva student, I had the opportunity to study with one of the great rabbis of the previous generation. His name was Rabbi Shmuel Silber. He may have been one of the greatest rabbis of the 20th century. He was certainly the greatest unknown rabbi. While he fastidiously avoided the limelight and was therefore unfamiliar to the general public, he was well known to connoisseurs of Torah learning. If you skip a little bit to page 7, he speaks about again the shir that he used to give on Thursdays at his yeshiva Netzach Yisrael, and how, as we mentioned before, that shir attracted all types of people. One of the regular participants, I'm about halfway down on page 7, about 5 lines up from the bottom. One of the regular participants was a professor at the Hebrew University, Robert J. or Yisrael Alman. Once a promising yeshiva student, he had eventually decided to pursue a career in academia, but made his weekly participation of Gustman's shir part of his schedule, along with many other more or less illustrious residents of Rechavi in Jerusalem. The year was 1982. Once again, Israel was at war. Soldiers were mobilized, reserve units activated. Among those called to duty was a reserve soldier, a university student who made his living as a high school teacher, Shlomo Alman, Professor Yisrael Alman's son. On the eve of the 19th of Sivan, in particularly fierce combat, Shlomo fell in battle. Rav Gustman mobilized his yeshiva. All of his students joined him in performing the mitzvah of burying the dead. At the cemetery, Rav Gustman was agitated. He surveyed the rows of graves of young men, soldiers who had died defending the land. On his way back from the cemetery, Rav Gustman turned to another passenger in the car and said, "They are all holy." Another passenger questioned the rabbi, "Even the non-religious soldiers?" Rav Gustman replied, "Every single one of them." He then turned to the driver and said, "Take me to Professor Alman's home." The family had just returned from the cemetery and would now begin the week of Shiva, mourning for their son, brother, husband, and father. Shlomo was married and had one child. His widow Shlomit had given birth to their second daughter shortly after he was killed. Rav Gustman entered and asked to sit next to Professor Alman, who said, "Rabbi, I so appreciate your coming to this cemetery, but now is time for you to return to your yeshiva." Rav Gustman spoke first in Yiddish and then in Hebrew, so that all those assembled would understand. And my friends, listen to this exchange between the two bereaved fathers. Rav Gustman said, "I am sure you don't know this, but I had a son named Meir. He was a beautiful child. He was taken from my arms and executed. I escaped. I later bartered my child's shoes so that we would have food. But I was never able to eat the food. I gave it away to others. My Meir He is a kadosh. He is holy. He and all the 6 million who perished are holy. Rav Guzman then added, I will tell you what is transpiring now in the world of truth and Gan Eden in heaven. My mayor is welcoming your Shlomo into the minyan. And is saying to him, I died because I am a Jew, but I wasn't able to save anyone else. But you, Shlomo, you died defending the Jewish people in the land of Israel. Rav Guzman said, my mayor is a kadosh. He is holy. But your Shlomo is a shliach tzibur, a cantor in that holy heavenly minyan. Rav Guzman continued, I never had the opportunity to sit shiva for my mayor. Let me sit here with you for just a little longer. Professor Alman replied, I thought I could never be comforted. But Rebbe, you have comforted me. Rav Guzman did not allow the painful memories to control his life. He found solace in his students, his daughter, and his grandchildren, and in every Jewish child. He and his wife would attend an annual parade on Yom Yerushalayim, where children would march on Jerusalem in song and dance. A rabbi who happened upon them one year asked the rabbi why he spent his valuable time in such a frivolous activity. Rav Guzman explained, we who saw a generation of children die will take pleasure in a generation of children who sing and dance in these streets. A student once implored Rav Guzman to share his memories of the ghetto and the war more publicly and more frequently. He asked him to tell people about his son's shoes. To which Rav Guzman replied, I can't. But I think about those shoes every day of my life. I see them every night before I go to sleep. On the 28th of Sivan, 1991, Rav Guzman passed away. Thousands marched through the streets of Jerusalem accompanying Rav Guzman on his final journey. As night fell on the 29th of Sivan, 9 years after Shlomo Alman fell in battle, Rav Guzman was buried in Har HaZeisa on Mount of Olives. I am sure that upon entering heaven, he was reunited with his wife, his teachers, and his son Meir. I am sure that Shlomo Alman and all the other holy soldiers who died defending the people and land of Israel were there to greet this extraordinary rabbi. You look at the end of the page. This is Rabbi Ari Khan writing. The last time I saw Rav Guzman, I was walking in Mea Sharm Gula section of Jerusalem with my wife and oldest son, who was being pushed in a stroller. It was Friday morning, and we saw the Rosh Yeshiva and said, hello, Ushtem Good Shabbos. Then I did something I rarely do. I asked him, turn to page 9, to bless my son. Rav Guzman looked at the toddler, smiled, and said, may he be a boy like all other boys. At first, my wife and I were stunned. What kind of bracha was this? We expected a blessing that the boy grow to be a tzaddik, a righteous man, or that he be a Talmid Chacham, a Torah scholar, but no. He blessed him that he should be like all other boys. It took many years for this beautiful blessing to make sense to us. The blessing was that he should have a normal childhood, that he have a normal life, that he have his health. Looking back, I realized what a tremendous blessing Rav Guzman gave, and why. He should be a boy like all other boys. the aspiration that we have as a people. Did you say to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we don't need major miracles. We don't need any type of even incredible windfall of divine blessing. We just want our children to be regular children. We just want to live regular lives. We just want to see and to experience the brachos that are just supposed to be part of the fabric of everyday life. This is the story of one man, a great tzaddik, who endured unspeakable trauma and unspeakable tragedy. But you see, from these stories, my friends, we learn about what to mourn for, but we also learn about the incredible resilience of Klal Yisrael. The Netzach Yisrael lo yishaker, that no matter how difficult, no matter how terrible, no matter how overwhelming our circumstances may be, there is nothing stronger than the Jewish spirit. There is nothing stronger than Klal Yisrael. There is nothing stronger than our ability to persevere. We're going to say a Kinnos now together. We're going to say Kinnos 6, which is the first of the Kinnos for today, which can be found on the inside of your Kinnos packets on page 40 in the packet itself. A word about the Kinnos and a word about Kinnos in general. In terms of Kinnos in general, I'll tell you for a moment, just to turn, I'm sorry that I'm making you go back and forth, but if you take a look on page 33, this is from a Torah journal that's titled Oraisa, and they dedicate an entire volume. The title of the volume is Acharei HaShoah. All different types of both halachic questions and a variety of things that came ultimately again from questions, responses, stories in the aftermath of the Holocaust. And he has a piece over here in number 20 which asks a fascinating question. So I'm on page, I'm making you go back and forth a little bit, but it's page 33, source number 20 in the packet. Nafkos halchatit bein amiras Kinnos la amiras tefillah. Now there's a lot of discussion in general about what are Kinnos. Is Kinnos tefillah? Is it prayer? Is it something else? And that means the classification of Kinnos is exceptionally important for understanding how to properly frame the experience. So if you take a look at number 20 for just a moment, Lefi Zemira, this is part of a much bigger piece, but Lefi Zemira sheyesh gam nafkamina lahalocha bein amiras hatfila la amiras hakinos. So this article was based on the premise that Kina is not tefillah. Kina is a separate construct that is a verbal formulation to allow for mourning. Kina is a vehicle to allow us to mourn. It is not tefillah. It is not prayer. What's the nafka? Meaning, what's the practical difference if something is a kina or it's a tefillah? So he says something amazing over here. B'tefillah, gami she'ino yodea lashon hakodesh u'mispalel b'li lahavin klal. Because you see, when it comes to tefillah, even if you have absolutely no idea what you're saying, say I daven, and I don't understand what the words mean at all, have I fulfilled my obligation? And the answer is absolutely yes. There are certain exceptions to this, like the first statement in Shema, which one is supposed to understand, but in general, the way it works with tefillah is, even if you don't know what you're saying, you have still fulfilled your obligation. However, when it comes to Kinnos, as long as you say the words, he says Lashon HaKodesh. The truth is, even if you say the words in other languages, it also works. Zu halacha mubas mishnah berurah semikuf chavdal sivkei beizisera mizu rabu adeh shekamashatz yachol otieh dechavaso mebli sheyotzi b'sasam uma imrak yazin la'amiras hashatz. Not only that, but I can even be yotzei the din of tefillah. I can even fulfill my tefillah obligation, even if I don't say a word. but I just listen to the Chazan recites it, I can fulfill my obligation that way. The Shomea Ka'ona. Look at the next paragraph. Ulam ba'asher la'amiras Kinnos. Gamim his garasha chova la'omra machmas haminag. Even though, again, there's no halachic obligation to say Kinnos, this is a very important idea. There's no halacha of Kinnos. The recitation of Kinnos is only a minhag. This is very important. That's why, again, we don't say all of Kinnos here in the shul. We say very few of them, actually. You're going to see why in just in a moment. Because what's the goal of Kinnos? El la'ober es halavavos, lachush es hatzar, b'shala ovdan v'achurban. What's the point of Kinnos? The point of the Kinnos is to awaken within ourselves a feeling of pain, a feeling of loss, a feeling of destruction. Memela, im eino mevin kal es tochnan shala Kinnos, ves pesha tevo shemotzi kipiv, ein klal to'elas ba'amirasan. Says the Mechaber something amazing. There is an incredible nafkamina, a practical difference between prayer and Kinnos. Prayer, which is a technical obligation, can be fulfilled even if you don't understand what you're saying. Not advising it. It's good to understand what you're saying. Tefillah, you can fulfill your obligation even through someone else. The Chazan could say it. And if you answer Amen, if you're attentive, you could be Yotzei as well. But Kinnos, what's the goal? What are we doing here this morning? We're here to feel the pain. We're here to awaken within ourselves the feeling of loss, the feeling of destruction, the feeling of a void. Again, remember, all in an effort to pine for that loss, for that void to be filled in. Therefore, Kinnos only works if I understand what I'm saying. If I don't understand the words, if I don't connect with the words, then at the end of the day, unfortunately, my recitation of Kinnos is deficient, is empty, and the truth is misses the mark. Memelon eino mevin klal as tochen shel Kinnos v'lo as pesha tevo shemotzi bepiv ein klal to'elas b'amirasan mi'idach nira shemanduhu yomar sakinos rak belibo efshar sheyetzi dechavasa aminag. He says something amazing, and using this logic, even if you didn't actually say the words of Kinnos, but you thought about them in your heart, you're Yotzei the Mitzvah of Kinnos as well. So the reason I'm sharing this with you is because we're going to say Kinavav right now. Kinavav is a very deep and profound Kinno, which begins with the words Shavas. Shavas, everything came to a standstill. I'll play on the words of Yirmiyahu HaNavi, and we'll read the words, you'll see the words. But I would tell you that if for some reason you don't want to read the words, maybe Kinnos never spoke to you, maybe Kinnos never connected with your neshama. So we're going to take our time, we're going to say it. The English is here. You can say it in English, you can say it in Hebrew. And if you don't want to say the words, that's okay also. You could just close your eyes. You could think about that which we've learned. You could close your eyes and think about whatever you want to think about related to Klal Yisrael, related to Korban. But the goal is connection. The Kinnos is Shavas Suru. Everything came to a standstill. The theme of the Kinno is how everything happened so dramatically. The destruction of the Beis HaMikdash happened so quickly, so dramatically. And when we read the Kinno, we're somewhat surprised because the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash did not happen quickly or dramatically. It was dramatic, but did not happen quickly. The Nevi'im were warning us for so long. The Nevi'im were warning us, were telling us all about this for such prolonged amounts of time. Well, nothing was sudden. But the mashal I like to give is kind of with a parent and children. A parent warns a child, if you keep doing this, this is going to happen, that's going to happen. If you keep doing this, you're going to get punished. If you keep doing this, this is going to be the repercussion. And the parent warns once, twice, multiple times. And then what happens? The parent finally punishes. And when the parent punishes, the child says, what happened? Why did you do this? As if the punishment's coming out of nowhere. Why? Because the child always banks on the love and on the compassion of the parent. The child never thinks that the parent is going to actually carry through. The Nevi'im told us many, many, many times what was going to happen. The writing was on the wall. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu loves us. There's no way He's going to allow this to occur. So He says, Shavas, everything came to a standstill. Everything happened so quickly. Page 40, Kinavav. Shavas, Surveli, Shimuyochai, Schimos, Hasimuni, Vejai Chabirai, Sakosa, Mishkan, Miskos, Delirai, Skosov, Vulu, Giborai, Safku, Kaf, Ma'aru, Avirai, Kisiva, Kalabirai, Raflu, Adeino, Vetoduya, Hine Hiksal, Chazal, Memrachio, At Regugal, Chabuya, Ini Vaolalas, Bibanis Nukuya, Hasab Nicha, Maikalipia, Nigam Aleva, Nibochia, Apane Pras, Nupsu Hasideha, Palgisuf Sakra, Kari Yusadeha, Achat Chet, Shila, Tapaf Sodeha, Hatu Khazireyar, Ayi Aksideha, Hatu Masay, Abalagan Linideha, Peshutsia on the other Ahar, Todo, Shalem Inanai, Safar, Shizidoni, Samso, Binok, Lamozidoni, Tsar, Nitsaras, Loreminoni, Sakami, Ime, Ben Inai, Sadiku, Adonai. Ato, Kilimich Palato, Meji Emoni, Rafta, Bo, Elai, Meachimuni, Ras Yoshe Givon, Odhim Zemuni, Kuni, Lashmia, Varav, Hegumuni, Kumi, Avori, Basel, Ramuni, Rasi, Lamavai, Himarimoni, Lama Rava, Hape, Ruach Hapenu, Ravach Shamaru, Raisa Ba, Kisno, Orinu, Hamaru, Raisa, Kiama, Vakas, Bivuch, Kamaru, Rafta, Biadi Cheskel, Kom, Kimo, Amaru, Re'e, Barachidim, Migoy, Amaru, Re'e, Adonai, Kitravi, Chamai, Chamar Maru, Hashibinu, Sisi, Shima, Lagoiteni, Shiftam, Remos, Chatiri, Dadgini, Sifse, Mishor, Re, Devir, Domu, Mahalini, Shamata, Zimoros, Ach, Echin, Tadini, Shachtu, Venadu, Chatis, Avrini, Shamu, Kenechani, Kitam, Chakta, Bekes of Panacha, Tashiv, Lahem, Gemur, Ka'ach, Chazos, Panacha, Tirdof, Ritzamon, Yuatzela, Atzfudacha, Titin, Avhab, No Sep, Ninecha, Tikra, Shakram, Kos, Kamos, Bifnecha, Taval, Kara, Asam, Panacha, Tavor, outside Shekilinu, Ninval, Hamas, Bechim, Manalanu, Ad, Lachalach, Lechavon, Igmanu, Sakain, Ubafar, B'Slak, Kivalunu, Ram, Habeit, Ana'am, Chakulanu, Schar Adonai, Nehayalanu. Hashem. Focus a little bit more on the children. And there's a lot in this packet that we won't get to over the course of today. But you look at it, it's a long day, Tisha. So we'll also jump back and forth a little bit. But if you take a look on the bottom of page 14, source number 10, this is from that journal Oraisa. Over here from Rav Hillel Lichtenstein, who was the Rav of Krasna, which was a town in Hungary. He wrote Shebachol Shika Bashoas Ra'yasav as Kol Mishpachto. So the Rav of Krasna, Rav Lichtenstein, lost his entire mishpachah. He survived the war, but he lost everything. Acharei Milchama Matzah Darko Lamachane Hakurim Shukam Belandsberg Vayasham Mekime Ola Shaldas. So he went to one of the DP camps. He, like the sons Klausenberger Rebbe, also really had an incredible part in helping to restart and rekindle the spirit of Yiddishkeit amongst the survivors in the DP camps. And he said something amazing. B'yom Aleph Shor Rosh Hashanah, Tavshin Vav Darash Sham Beis HaKnesses Lifnei Tekiah Shofar V'Ko Amar. So can you imagine this? First day Rosh Hashanah. First Rosh Hashanah after they had been liberated, from the camps. They're having Yomim Noruim davening in the camps. The Rebbe gets up before Shofar and he says as follows: Tamid machrizim lifnei Tekiah Shofar. We always make the announcement before Tekiah Shofar. Shekol echad me'amispalulim yashkiach al hayilodim haketanim shelo yafriyu. So the Rebbe said, it's an amazing thing. Apparently it's minhag kidumin, minhag from yesteryear, that before Tekiyos, So the Gabbai, the Rav, the Baal Tokeh, whoever it is, always makes the same announcement. What's always the same announcement? L'dorei doros of Klal Yisrael. Watch your kids. Make sure you know where your children are. Don't let the children be mafriya. Don't let them drop a tkiyah shofar. The Rebbe says something amazing. He said, "L'da'avonenu eifo hayom hayiledim hayim." See, in the Rebbe's shul on that first Rosh Hashanah, after liberation, the shul was quiet. Where are the children? Halevai b'yarshiu. The Rebbe of Krasna said, what I wouldn't give to hear children making noise right now. Zu haisakala drasha. This was Rav Lichtenstein's drasha prior to Tkiyah Shofar. I wish we could tell the children to be quiet. Eifo hayom hayiladim ha'im halevai v'yarshiu v'chol ha'kal paras v'bechimar. The entire kila, the kila of the brokenhearted, began to cry such bitter tears. There are many diaries that have been found in the aftermath of the Holocaust. Yad Vashem has an incredible collection of diaries written by children during the war, in the ghettos, and diaries from children before the war that documented regular life through the eyes of the children, that documented the rise of the Nazis, Yimach Shalom V'Zichron, to power. And I want to share with you one of these diaries. But you know, my friends, if we get to the diary, we all have those moments when our children get on our nerves. We all have those moments when the kids are playing too loud, making too much noise. Maybe it's a Shabbos afternoon where I just want to take a nap and the cackling is keeping me up. Or it's time for bed and the kids are doing anything and everything to avoid it. As soon as you get upset and we get angry, as a day like this, that the Rebbe of Krasna refocuses on us and says, wow, if your home and if your life and if your shul are filled with the boisterous sounds of children's mischief and laughter, Zachisa, what a privilege. What a privilege to hear those sounds. What a privilege to be disrupted by those sounds. What a privilege to lose sleep by those sounds. Because there was a period not so long ago where those sounds were not heard in any shul. And those sounds were not heard in many homes. If you look on page 15, a couple of summers ago, I was in Eretz Yisrael in the beginning of the 3 weeks over Shavasar B'Tammuz. My wife was gracious enough to give me Shavasar B'Tammuz to be able to spend it in Yad Vashem. So I spent the entire day there, literally right after Shachris in the morning. Actually had even a minyan for Mincha in Yad Vashem, and then tomorrow that night. And I was drawn, this time they were having an exhibit about these children's diaries. And they had actually some of the manuscripts. You see actually what I have over here for you on page 15. I took a picture of the manuscript that was out. That's why it's in certain places it's a little bit fuzzy. And this diary was written by a little boy by the name of Avremik Kolupchik. Right, or Koflovich, I should say. Koflovich. Kaplowitz. Koflovich. And you're going to see the power of this diary is incredible. And not as much, the poetry is beautiful. We'll see a little bit of the poetry was written by a very young child. But what's even more dramatic is the story behind it. You notice again, Yad Vashem put it out. I think now you could actually purchase a copy of it. But if you take a look at number 16, you see a picture, and I apologize for the quality of it. That is a picture of little Avremik Koplovich in the middle. We'll see he was an older child when he wrote this particular diary. But I want to share with you the introduction to the diary. If you look on page 17, the introduction was written by Achi Achorig Avram Kaplovich. The introduction to the diary was written by a man by the name of Eliezer Greenfeld. Eliezer Greenfeld was the stepbrother to Avram Kaplovich. The two of them never met. They never met. It was Eliezer Greenfield's mother, who married Avram Kaplovich's father. Eliezer Greenfield's father who married Avram Kaplovich's mother. They were stepbrothers, but stepbrothers who never met. And in this introduction, the stepbrother gives an introduction to the diary of his now deceased little brother Avram. Look what he writes, paragraph A. Bishnas 1930, Kishnol Avram Kaplovich, Ischalti ani es limudi, Bekita Aleph bebeit Sefer Polani Yiladim Yudim Be'ir Lodge. So now again, remember, this is this Eliezer Greenfield who was writing this introduction. He says, in the year 1930, when my stepbrother, Avram Kaplovich, was born, I was already in first grade in a Polish school for Jewish children in the city of Lodz. Bishnas 1939, Perzel Mochama, paragraph B. In the year 1939, the war broke out. Hanatziim Pelshu, the Poland, Kavshu Osa, the Nazis invaded Poland, captured Poland. Va'achesagru ha'germanim es Yehudei Lodz begetto, hispachti l'sayim es limudiva beit sefer amami, aval Avram Kaplovich hispik bakosh l'sayim shtei kitos. So the author of the introduction, this Eliezer Greenfield, says, by the time the Nazis came in, I had pretty much finished school, but Avram Kaplovich was not more than second grade. And once we were herded into the ghetto, both of us lost the opportunity to continue our learning. Hachayim beghetto Lodz hayu kashem od. Life in the Lodz ghetto was very difficult. Avoda mifarechas, backbreaking labor. Pachad mipnei girush v'rav kevar hayu minas chelkeinu. Ongoing fear because of being chased out, being rounded up. Hunger were our regular daily lot. Lo zachisi lifkosh ulahakir beghetto es Avram Kaplovich. I never had the opportunity in the ghetto to meet Avram Kaplovich. Afapi she'imi avda ba'osa beis malacha shebo shimish aviv shel Avram menahel mechalcha shemotzri niyar. Even though, amazingly enough, our parents, who at that time were married to different people, worked in the same place in the ghetto. Kichol shechalav hazman halach ghetto lodge v'tstamtim atshafach lamachane avoda sheba matzu es mosam rov Yehudei Lodz. As time went on, the ghetto became smaller, became a labor camp, and most of the Jews inside of it died. Vistav, paragraph D, 1944, Chusal HaGhetto Sofit. In the fall of 1944, the ghetto was liquidated. Hanatzim hissu es tachnis hageru shalahem v'odiu she'im ma'abirim es hayudim ka'al hamifalim sha'avdu b'ahem l'ma'arav Germania kivyachol kedei laharchikam min ha'chazis harusit hamiskareves. The Germans liquidated us under the pretense that they were evacuating us from the approaching Russian front, and they were doing it for our own benefit. Ani shanitzalti b'mikreh chazarti lelodz l'chapes mishpachti. So the author says, I was saved by mere accident, by mere hashgacha, b'mikreh, and I went back to Lodz to find my family. Hamazel heir lipanim umatzati esimi shechazra mimachan hanoshim Ravensbrück. And Baruch Hashem was able to find my mother, who came back from the camp Ravensbrück, which in and of itself was an incredible miracle. As most people that went to Ravensbrück were usually executed upon the day that they arrived there. We'll discuss that later on. I found my mother. This Eliezer, his father, did not survive the war, but he found his mother. Paragraph E. So now I had two options. Lishar b'Poland u'leser b'shikuma b'mishtar kommunisti or litztarif l'tnuas hanor hatzioni hayuzemes aliyah bilti liglis l'eretz Yisrael. So he says, after the war I had two options. One was to live under the communists, or the other was to join the Youth Zionist movement and to go to Palestine. At that time it was Palestine. Bacharti la'alos li'eretz Yisrael, b'machaneh harikuz nadarti neder, shin eitzei chai min ha'gehenem hazeh egadlos yiladei kibnei chorin, b'medinas ha'yehudim shetakum, paragraph F. V'ani eya lepeh la'osam ha'anavshim shlo zachol yishar b'chaim kamoni. And as Eliezer said, I swore that if I survived this, I would raise my family in a Jewish country, and I would become a mouthpiece for all of those who did not survive. Paragraph G. Imi nishara bePoland. My mother stayed in Poland. V'nis'a leMendel Koplovich shechazar meAuschwitz. She married a survivor. She married a survivor by the name of Mendel Koplovich, who came back from Auschwitz. Hayu Eila Nisim Shnim L'Shtein. For both of them, my mother and for Mendel Koplovich, it was a second marriage. Shari Koplovich ibeid beAuschwitz es ishto v'nes beno yechido Avremek. In Auschwitz, Mendel lost his wife and his only son Avremek. Lachar Shichrur Chazar Koplovich ha'av lebeis ha'yoshen belodge v'sham ba'aliyas hagag matzah Tziyur Katan, Pri Micholo Shel Avremek U'Mechaberes Shirim Shelo Beno. So this is amazing. After the war, Mendel Koplovich, who lost his wife and his son in Auschwitz, comes back to the home where he raised his family, and apparently where they were during the days of the ghetto as well. He goes into the attic and he finds two things. Number one, a picture that his little boy Avremek had drawn, and he discovered something else, a book of poetry that Avremek had written that his father had never known about. Paragraph H. Aviv shel Avremek Mendel Koplovich kibel od lifnei milchama heter samchos l'shem yishrav. Before the war, Mendel Koplovich was already recognized as an accomplished Talmid Chacham, an accomplished Torah scholar, and had received smicha. Aval achar harach milchama chazer b'shela v'naase ish chiloni l'chol davar. After the war, he, like many others whom we cannot stand in judgment on, gave up religion, gave up God, not in an antagonistic fashion, but just simply wanted nothing really to do with it anymore. And this is, so now, just to understand the flow of the story. So, Mendel Koplovich comes back from Auschwitz, lost his son Avremek, his wife, and now marries this woman, for whom it's a second marriage for both. The mother, we'll call her this Mrs. Greenfield, this mother. They moved to Eretz Yisrael, Mendel and his second wife. They settle in the city of Cholon, and that in their small bedroom, Me'al mita sam tala Mendel es hatzir shel Avremek beno. Mendel hung the little picture, the little drawing of his son Avremek. My friends, can you imagine that? In his small little bedroom in Cholon, with his second wife, a new life, he hangs the little drawing of a little boy. Just so you know, Avremek was somewhere between 7 or 8 years old, 9 years old, at the time that he was murdered in Auschwitz. All he has left of his beautiful son is a picture and a book of poetry. The picture goes on the wall. But Mendel Koplovich, haya ish sagur umufnam. Mendel Koplovich was a closed book. Hu lo nahag ledaber al haben she'ibed. Never once did Mendel mention anything about Avremek. He never mentioned anything about his son who had been murdered in Auschwitz. Al machberes hashirim shebirshuso lo siper leish. He never told anyone about the book of songs, the book of poetry that little Avremek had composed. Gam imi lo yada al davar kiyuma shel machberes. So the author Eliezer Greenfield says, even my mother, the wife of Mendel Koplovich, never even knew about the existence of the book of poems. Paragraph I. Pam ba'arav yamav. One time when Mendel Koplovich was already an older man, siper lanu she'Avremek haya yeled muchshar u'mechunan. So Mendel Kaplovich said that his son Avramek was a sweet and beautiful child, a gifted child. And listen to this story. And now you're going to understand why Mendel Kaplovich was never able to speak about his son. Hugam Siper, Sheve Auschwitz, Allah biyodo lahavir sanar derech haseleksia harishona. You know, in Auschwitz, there was no place for children. In Auschwitz, there was only a place for someone who could produce something. And if you could not produce, then all you were good for was to feed the soot of the chimneys. Children did not survive in Auschwitz. Mendel Kaplovich shows up to Auschwitz with his beloved son Avramek, and somehow, he manages to save him from the infamous selection of Dr. Mengele Hashem Yimach Shemo V'Zichro. And he hides little Avramek with him in the barracks. And what happens? Chas al benosh kishahaya alav. So what happens? Aval achar kach kishahaya alav latseis laavoda mefarechas michutz lamachana. Chas al beno vehistir osa b'sochat tzrif. It's the middle of the winter. The Jews are being taken out of the barracks to do back-breaking labor, to be marched off somewhere outside of the camp. Mendel Kaplovich has Rachmanis on his little son. Probably sees his small, weak, and broken body. Says, you know what, Avramek, stay here. Stay here in the barrack. Hide under the planks. And I'll be back for you in the evening. Kishechazar balayla min avoda. Matza esmi taso shal Avramek reka. When Mendel Kaplovich came back that night from a day of back-breaking labor, he finds the bed, not really a bed, but the spot, the wooden plank where he left Avramek, was gone. Hanar nilkach l'teagazim. The little boy was taken to the gas chamber. Asirim achirim shalakhu es yaldeim itam la'avoda shavu ba'erev im yaldeim l'tzrif. Every other father who had also saved his child and who had taken him that day with him to do the labor came back with his child that night. Shavu ba'erev im yaldeim l'tzrif. V'iluhu ibed espino. Mendel Kaplovich left his son in the barrack that day. Had Rachmanis on his little boy. And when he came back that night, his beautiful son Avramek was no longer. Yitachin shemendel Kaplovich ra es atzmo ashem b'mos bino umikan niva has histagruso. So Eliezer Greenfield, the stepson of Mendel Kaplovich, says, then we began to understand. See, Mendel Kaplovich blamed himself for the death of his one and only son, for the death of Avramek. And that's why he can never bring himself to speak about him. Ani mikomoko me'olam lo dibarti ito akach. And I could never bring myself to speak with Mendel about the life and his feelings for Avramek. Friends, you understand the profundity of that event. What it means to be a father. To live with that kind of pain, day in and day out. The pain of coming back and not seeing your beloved son there, knowing that in Auschwitz there's only one other place he could be. And to have to go through the rest of life with that pain. Maybe had I taken him with me that day, maybe had I not left him all alone by himself, maybe things would be different. So Mendel Kaplovich becomes a closed book, unable to speak about his beautiful and special son, unable to even mention his name. Paragraph J. La'achar Mosam Shal Mendel B'Shnas 1983. B'Shalini B'Shnas 1985. 1983, Mendel Kaplovich dies. 1985, his wife dies. B'Sha'a Sha'arachti Seder Ben Niyaroseim. As often that happens when parents pass away, children go through their papers. Matzasi es Machberes Hashirim. I found the notebook of little Mendel Kaplovich's poetry. Kacha Hizvarti L'Rishona La'Avremek Kaplovich. And Eliezer Greenfield writes, this is the first time I ever got to know my stepbrother. I never knew him before. But through his poetry, for the first time, I was able to see who he was. Hisvadu Sholechas V'Nimshechas Kolashan Me'az Va'ad Hayom Hazeh. Kvar Be'iyun Harishon M'Machberes Hovtati, turn the page to page 19, paragraph K, Mikoach HaYitzira HaPoris Mishirav. And immediately upon reading the poetry, I was so taken by the profundity of his metaphor, of his imagery, of his use of words. Lemar B'Hatzar Lo Haya Li'od Esmi Lishol B'Dvarim Pratiyim Shonim. B'Mer Shama Toshavim Shal Get Oloj Matzasi Shura Achas B'Zu HaLashon. And all I was able to find in one little entry, Avram Kaplovich Nolad, January 18th, 1930, Mikzoa Talmud and Aksovis Begeto. Paragraph N. As Hamachberes Masarti Liyad Vashem Kedei Shetishamish Masmach. So then he discusses how he gave it over to Yad Vashem so that they could preserve it, they could share it. Paragraph N. If you skip a little bit, he says, Akvarim, paragraph O, Al-Kvarim HaMishutaf Shal Imi V'Shal Mendel Kaplovich B'Cholon Charatati Es Hamilim L'Zecher B'no Avremek Shenisfa B'Shoah Hashem Yikom Damo. And Eliezer Greenfield says, in one last act of chesed for my stepbrother who I never knew, Avremek, on my parents' joint gravestone, I inscribed L'Zecher B'no, in remembrance for their son Avremek, who was swept up in the Shoah. May Hashem avenge their blood. You see, a sefer hazeh mukdash kam l'zecher imi chaya zichron l'brach. See, my friends, even before you read the poetry, I often think to myself that this Avremek was fortunate in some way that at least his stepbrother found his sefer, stepbrother found his poetry. Yad Vashem published it, and there's a legacy. His name is inscribed on a stone right next to his parents. But the overwhelming thought that I find myself faced with is, what about all the other Avremiks? What about all the other precious children that have just simply disappeared into the sands of time? Whose names we don't remember, whose faces we do not recognize. But it's a day like today where we say to them, we say to their neshamas, even if I don't know your name, and even if I can never recognize your face, we want you to know, precious children who have been taken from us over the last 2,000 years. We feel you in our hearts, we feel you in our soul. We feel you, even though we don't know you. And it's your memory which reminds us how much we have to accomplish. It's your memory which pushes us to move forward. It's your memory that reminds us that not only do we have to accomplish things for ourselves, but we must accomplish things on behalf of those who can no longer accomplish, on behalf of themselves. Avremik's name is engraved on a stone, but it is our job to engrave the names of the millions of forgotten children on our hearts and on our souls. I'll share with you one passage from Avremik's poetry. If you look at page 20, there's a beautiful piece. It's the top poem. Of course, it was written originally. Most of it is in Polish. Some of it written in a couple of poems in Yiddish, but it was translated by Yad Vashem into Hebrew. So we'll look at some of the Hebrew selections. He writes, Likras kol haba rotzim horav, ulai zehaben hashav mistake rav. So it must be that he must have written this already in the ghetto. He must have written this already in the midst of when things were unspeakable and horrible. And he writes, Likras kol haba rotzim horav. For every child running back, the parents run towards him to greet him. Why do the parents run forward? Ulai zehaben hashav mistake rav. Maybe this is my child who is coming back from the fields of battle. Achlo, za'od echad mikol hazarim, shavim heim habaita ko'avim umiyoashim. But it is not my child. It's someone else who comes home in pain and in despair. V'azman lo mevi mazor laptzaim. And time does not bring any healing to all of the wounds. Niftara av me'etzar migaguim. The father has died because of pain and yearning. Aval ha'im adayin mitzapa libna. But you see, a mother never stops yearning for her child. A father sometimes dies and gives up as a result of his pain and his yearning. But the imma, adayin mitzapa libna, is waiting for her son. Uba chalamos balayla. Chazak mechabekes es beral shela. And in her dreams at night, she tightly hugs her berala. Written by a little boy Avramek, who knows the pain of being separated from parents, who sees the pain of being children, parents being separated from their children. And as a young boy has the sensitivity to be able to capture this incredible feeling and emotion. And there are many more poems that are included over here. You'll look at some of these on your own, as well as a postscript to the poems, which are incredibly beautiful. I want you to turn your attention to page 27. And here we have what I think is, again, one of the stirring stories regarding the children. But this story is not from the Holocaust, and this story is not contemporary. This story is perhaps one of the most well-known stories. A story which is recorded in some version in the Gemara, different version in the Medrash, two different places in the Medrash. A story about a woman by the name of Miriam Bas Baitus. Now, if you take a look at number 12 on page 27 in your packets, Ma'aseh Miriam Bas Baitus Nachtum. There was a story of Miriam, the daughter of Baitus Nachtum. Right? The family of Baitus were also known because they knew how to make the lechem aponim, or different types of breads for karbanos. And she was known as Miriam, the daughter of Baitus Nachtum. Shenishbis u'beda ba'ako. She was taken captive. She was redeemed in Akko. Zavam la'chalok echad azlas l'mishtafei b'yama. Asa gala v'nasbei. Zavam la'ochrin azlas l'mishtafei b'yama. Va'asa gala v'nasbei. So the Medrash tells a very strange story, which we're not going to spend too much time with. But suffice it to say, Miriam Bas Baitus is taken captive and treated terribly by her captors. She's found by a group of Jews. She doesn't have clothing. And so they give her clothing. But every time they give her clothing, the Medrash says a wave comes along and sweeps away her clothing. And again, they want to once again give her clothing. Amr lahon hanichu lo legabay shigves chavo. She says, let the collector collect his debt. Kevan shetzidka alas hadin ramas hakodesh baruch hu liyam v'otzia lakileha. Once she accepted divine judgment upon herself, the sea gave her back her clothing. Very strange story. Miriam Bas Baitos, captured, abused by her tormentors, redeemed. The Jews want to clothe her. Every time they give her clothing, the sea takes it away. Again, give her clothing, the sea takes it away. Until she finally says, let the collector collect his debt. And at that point in time, HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives her the clothing, and the clothing remains. The message of the Medrash, of course, exceptionally profound and understood. There's sometimes the difficulty of the suffering of the Jew is the inability to catch your breath. Sometimes it's just wave after wave after wave of tsar, of difficulty that overtakes us. And I can't get my bearings. I can't get my clothing. I can't stabilize myself. And sometimes the only thing to do in the midst of that torrent and overwhelming flow of life difficulty is to accept it. I'm a Kabbal that this is the Ratzon Hashem. I don't understand it. I don't like it. I'm not happy with it. But I have no choice but to resign myself to it. And sometimes, amazingly enough, Nechama only comes in the midst of resignation. And herein lies an incredibly profound idea. Sometimes, when difficult events occur, we find ourselves so angry, so upset, and so betrayed, and rightfully so, and it's understandably so. But those feelings of hurt, those feelings of pain, those feelings of betrayal, they don't get us anywhere. They don't help us with anything. They don't change our circumstances. And sometimes it's only in the moment when we accept the difficulty of our circumstances that we're girded with the strength to navigate them. Miriam Bas Nachtum was so broken, and we'll discuss why she was so broken for so many good reasons. She could not accept that which occurred, and therefore, again, she could not move on. There was no nechama. That's the metaphor. Every single time she got the article of clothing, the sea swept it away. The sea representing the turbulent vicissitudes and unpredictable events of life. She could not receive nechama, not because it wasn't there for the taking, but because she was not ready to accept it. She was angry. She was hurt. But when she accepts the reality of her circumstances, when she accepts the reality of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's judgment, when she says, Baruch Dayan HaEmes, doesn't make everything better. Not at all. It doesn't even dry the tears. But it allows her to focus her energies on rebuilding. But the Medrash expands on the story, and this is a very well-known story. But it's important for us to focus on it nevertheless. Take a look at number 13. The Medrash writes in Echarav, Maaseh b'Miriam Bas Nachtum, shenishbesi v'shiva baneha. There's a story of Miriam Bas Nachtum, who was taken captive, her and her 7 sons. There's another version of this story, where the woman's name is not Miriam, but rather Chana. But Miriam and her 7 sons are taken captive by the Romans, we'll see, by the Caesar. And what happens? The Caesar brings the first son. He says to the son, bow down to the idol. I'm not interested in spilling children's blood. I'm not interested in killing you. But I need you to pledge your allegiance to me, to my idol. To which the little boy says, I will never bow down to an idol. Amar lo lama. Caesar says, why not? So the child then goes on to deliver a beautiful and stirring drasha to the Caesar about why he will not bow down to an idol. So what happens? 13 Aleph, 5 lines down. Miyad hotzia v'hargu. The Caesar kills the child. Hotzia sheni v'amar. Caesar calls for the second son. Tells him again, bow down to the tzelem. The second son again says no. Gets into a whole discussion with Caesar. Miad gozer lavahargo. He says Caesar commands that he's killed. Shlishi, Revi'i, Chamishi, Shishi. Third son, fourth son, fifth son, sixth son. Each of them executed by the Caesar for their refusal to bow down to the idol. Chana, seeing each of her precious sons murdered right in front of her eyes. Number 13, paragraph base. Hotzia hashvi v'haya katan shebekulam. Caesar sends for the seventh son, a little boy. Amar b'ni hishtachav eletzelam. So if you notice again, the Caesar himself doesn't want to execute this little boy. And he uses a term of endearment. My son, bow down to the idol. Amar lo chas v'shalom. The little boy says no. Amar lo lama. And once again he says, Ksiba torasinu di'adata emeshavose el lebavecha. So the little boy begins to give his whole theological argument why he's not going to bow down to the idol. If you look in paragraph base, 5 lines in, Amar le Kesar, Achicha shiva yamim v'shivu chayim v'ro tova v'ata katan lo sabata yamim v'ata katan lo sabata yamim v'lo sabata chayim v'lo ra'isa tov ba'olam hishtachav eletzelem v'asa b'chotovos. So the Caesar tries to reason with the little boy. Your brothers, they were older. Okay, they died. You're young. You haven't even begun to experience life yet. Why do you want to give your life for this? Just bow down to the idol. It's not a big deal. And I promise I will give you such a beautiful life. I'll reward you with anything you want. So the child goes on, gives the arguments. Skip the paragraph Gimel. Amar le Kesar. Re'ei achicha harugim lefanecha v'ani mashlich tabasi la'aretz lefanai. Hatelein v'agbia kadei sheyedu hakol sheshamata lekoli. So Caesar says, listen, you see the bodies of your 6 older brothers are there lying on the ground in front of you. I'm going to put my ring on the ground. Just pick up my ring. You could tell everybody you didn't bow down to the idol. You'll just pick up my ring, but you and I both know the truth that you are bowing down to the idol. Just do it. Just do it. The bodies of your 6 brothers are right there. Why are you going to do this? So the little boy says, Caesar, I feel sad for you. I feel sad for you. So ultimately the little boy then goes on to give another beautiful drasha. You, Caesar, you're so preoccupied with what other people think. Should I not be preoccupied with what HaKadosh Baruch Hu thinks? If you're so concerned with Basar Badam, should I not be concerned with God? Paragraph Dalid. Miyad Gazer Alav Lahargo. Caesar commands for the little boy to be killed. Amr la imo, B'chayi Roshecha Kesar. Tinei is bini ve'achabkeu ve'anashkeu. So my friends, listen to this overwhelming story. The mother, Miriam, who has just seen the barbaric butchery of her 6 older sons, now is about to see her 7th son murdered in front of her eyes, says to the Caesar, please, give me my son, and let me hug him and let me kiss him. Just give me a few more moments with him before you take him. Nasnu hala, v'otziu lo dada, ve'nikaso chalav. She takes the little boy and she nursed him. She holds her son for the last few moments of his life. Amar lo b'chayi rashecha Kesar, hargeni tchila v'achakach targeu. She says to Caesar, a sentiment that has been said by Jewish mothers for the last 2,000 years. Please, kill me first before you kill my child. Amar la Kesar, Eini shomea lech b'bnei shekasa b'taraschem shor oseh oso ve'es beno Los tishchatu b'yom echad. And the Caesar, in a demonically barbaric answer, says to her, I can't. Because your Torah says that you may not shecht a mother and its son on the same day. And if I kill you first, I won't be able to kill your son. And it's more important for me to be able to kill your son than you. And the mother says, Yeshoteg, she goes on, Miyad Siva Alav, paragraph 28. Lahargo. Caesar says, now it is time for me to go ahead and kill your son. Miriam throws herself on her little boy. And she begins to hug him, and she begins to kiss him. V'amra lo, she says to him, these are the final words from a mother to her son. B'ni, leich eitel Avram avichem. In just a few moments you're going to leave this world, and I want you to go to Avram, our father. V'amar lo, and I want you to say to him, Kach amra imi, my mother has a message for you. Al tozuach daita alecha. Avram, don't get carried away with yourself. V'tomer b'nisi mizbeach ve'alis Yitzchak b'ni. Because Avram, your claim to fame is that you built an altar and you're willing to offer your son. Hare imenu bansa sheva mizbechos. My mother built 7 altars. Ve'elsa shiva banim biyom echad. And she sacrificed 7 sons on those altars, all on the same day. Atani sayon va'ani ma'isa. You, Avram, were only tested. But in the last moment, the divine voice rings out and says, Al tishlach yadcha el anar. But I, Miriam, Maisa, I had to sacrifice. At shahisa min hashakso mechapkaso. Gazar Allah v'hargo Allah. And while she was hugging and kissing her child, the Caesar commanded and he was brutally murdered. V'chevan shenergu, when the little boy was murdered, Shiru chachamim shnosav sha'oso tinok. Everyone wanted to know, how old was this little boy? V'nimtza ben shtei shanim v'shisha chadashim. 2.5 years old. It's hard to understand, and it's hard to comprehend. Miriam Bas Nachtum hugging and kissing her little baby, 2.5 years old, holding him for one last time, giving him a message to deliver to Avram Avinu in the Olam HaEmes. My mother gave 7 karbanos today, Avram Avinu. And you know, my friends, if this story happened once in our history, it would be heartbreaking. But it's happened so many times throughout the years. It's happened with the mother who was hiding with her 4 children in a bunker from the Nazis in Machshon Zichron with her own children and a group of other families. And the little baby begins to cry. And everyone knows that if a baby cries and the bunker is discovered, that's it. And so she tries her best to soothe the child, to muffle the cries of the child, but has no choice but to put her hand on top of the mouth of the child, only to find that when the imminent danger is gone, her child was now lifeless. But she had to choose between the infant, between her children, between everyone else. Miriam Bas Nachtum never tells her son to bow down to the idol, because the Jewish mother has made these kinds of choices throughout the ages. Sometimes it's the choice of choosing HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Sometimes it's the choice of choosing the majority of her children over the life of one. Choices that we cannot fathom, choices that we cannot understand, but choices that are overwhelmingly heartbreaking. And at number 14, Rav Asher Weiss, again in his Sefer Minchas Asher, is bothered by this exchange. He's bothered by the idea that what does it mean when she tells her son, go tell Avram Avinu, you only offered one carbon, I offered 7. What is she trying to accomplish? And Rav says something so beautiful. He says, no, it was a message of thanks to Avram Avinu. See, Avram Avinu taught us, Avram Avinu instilled within us the concept of Mesiras Nefesh. Avram Avinu gave us the power to sacrifice of ourselves and to sacrifice ourselves for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Where does that power come from? That power that we've been drawing on for generations. That comes from Avram Avinu's Mesiras Nefesh. In fact, when a little boy is brought into the covenant of Bris Milah, so the bracha that's recited is Lachniso beviso shel Avram Avinu. And that's the bris. That's the bracha that the father says. What's the pshat in that bracha? That's the bracha where a father obligates his son to be moser nefesh for Yiddishkeit, for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That koach, that strength came from Avraham Avinu. And that's the strength which fuels us to this very day. If you take a look at number 15, another incredible maisa. Another incredible story. This is from the diary of a Rav Tzvi Hirsch Meislish, or Meisels, who was mishpacha to the Satmar Rebbe, and himself comes to America after the war, becomes a very, very prominent rabbinic personality. He was in Auschwitz, and he writes about the times that he was consulted for all different kinds of shilas, all different kinds of situations, and here he records a dramatic episode. He says, this is from the Sefer Ani Ma'amin. He says, number 15, page 28, paragraph Aleph. Hine be'erev Rosh Hashanah, nikbitzu v'nilkachu yedalad meos na'arim liblok mevudad v'sagur. He says, it happened on Rosh Hashanah Tafshin Hey. There were a group of boys, 1,400 children, taken to a sealed-off block, a sealed-off barrack in the concentration camp. L'machar b'yom Aleph Rosh Hashanah, nispashta ashma b'chal ha'machana, shala'is erev yichwas anar al beis hamukad. So what happened? The word came out that the next day, first day of Rosh Hashanah, those boys were going to be taken to the gas chambers. Ul'harbe anashon shel ha'machana haya lahem benam yechidam asher nishron al pleita v'hem ratzu kol yom b'rosh mebulbal saviv liblok hasagur. Ulai yiftach eze keren or lahatzil misham es hanar hayakar shalahem. And for many of the people, They had only children. Those only sons were sealed off in that block. And that entire day, Rosh Hashanah, they're running around in front of the block trying to figure out, is there some way that maybe they could save their child? Page 29, paragraph base. This is Rav Meislish saying, a simple Jew came over to me and he said, Rebbe, I have my one and only son, I have an only child who is inside of the sealed off block and Nebuch is going to be killed. And I have the ability to redeem him. What does that mean? I have money. And I could bribe someone and I could go ahead and get my son out of there. But we know that the Nazis in Machsham v'Zichram had exceptional record keeping. And if there are 1,400 boys, that means there are 1,400 boys. So if I redeem my son, another child will be taken in his stead. Al Kain, ani shoel she'ela lahalacha l'maisa. Therefore, the father comes over to Rav Meislish and he says, Rebbe, I'm asking you a shayla. I'm asking you halacha l'maisa. What should I do? Lispok li hadin al pi Torah. Give me a psak halacha. Im ani rashai lifdoso v'kasher yifsok kain esa. My friends, do you understand the enormity of this? How the heavens must have shaken when this shayla was asked. Rebbe, I'm asking a shayla, and whatever you tell me to do is what I will do. Am I allowed to redeem my son from the sealed block, knowing that if I do, someone else's child will be taken in his stead? I have the money, I have the means, I have the connection to save my only child. Am I permitted to do so? Rav Meislish says, V'shafti lo, yididiyah yakar, eich uchal lifsok lecha halacha berura al sheila kazu. I can't paskin this shayla for you. Halo bizman shebeis hamikdash hayakayim, haisa sheila kazu ola al shulchan hasanhedrin. So he says, Rav Meislish says, when the Beis Hamikdash stood, this would have been a shayla that would have been brought to Lishkas Hagazis, to the chamber of hewn stone, to the Sanhedrin. This is dinei nefashos. This is life and death. I can't paskin this. V'ani kan be'Auschwitz b'li shum sifrei halacha u'b'li od rabbanim achirim u'b'li yishuv hadas me'rov telos v'tzaros. I can't paskin the shayla for you. I can't even in good circumstances, because this is a Sanhedrin shayla. But I certainly can't now when we're in the midst of Gehenna, where I have no yishuv hadas, no inner tranquility, I have no son. I can't paskin for you. So what happens? He says, "V'hine im haya derech harishon lahotzim mikodem hanifta v'achakach licha acham koma haya makom l'tzadik k'tzas lahatir achin hiftzir b'ma'od ha'ish haniskal b'bechir rabba." The father started crying. V'amar li Rebbe, ata muchrachim lifsok li ka'es es halacha v'ani ba'achas mischan ne'lov. So he says, Rebbe, you have to paskin the halacha. I don't know what to do, and I'm asking you for psak halacha. V'ani ba'achas mischan ne'lov. And Rav Meislish says, and I at the same time am pleading with him, heref mimena b'shelazos, leave me alone, please. Stop asking me for a psak halacha. Ki lo ucha lomar lacha lo davar v'lo chatzi davar. I can't give you an answer. V'mamshich u'maftzir li v'omer li b'zu aloshen Rebbe, ha'im perush hadavar she'ein chamatir liftos b'nei yichidi. Rebbe, I have to interpret your non-psak as a psak halacha that I'm not allowed to redeem my son. Im lav, and if you tell me I'm not allowed to redeem my child, ani mekabel es a psak din bi'ava. I accept your ruling with ava. V'ani mischaninu mochal dvarav. And Rav Meislish says, I was pleading with him. V'adayin menasu maftzir bi la'ashivo davar barar. And he keeps on begging me back, give me a clear answer. Ukishirosh ani omid b'shali ve'eneni rotze la'anos al dvar halacha. Onoli beregesh u'bislavus kidola. And finally, when the man saw that I was not going to answer him, he says to me, paragraph 8, Rebbe, ani asisi eshali. Rebbe, I've done my responsibility. Kefi shaTorah mechayebes osi lasos. I've done in accordance with what the Torah tells me to do. Sha'alti es harav she'ila. The halacha is, you have a question, you ask your Rav, you ask your Rebbe. I ask the Shaila. V'Rav achar ein kan. And Rebbe, there's no one else but you here. Im ein kavod harav yochalanos, shemuter li liftos es yiladi. If you cannot give me an absolute and unequivocal answer that I am allowed to redeem my child, harei zeh siman she'einenu shalem im ha'alocha lahatir. That means, Rabbi, that you are not b'shalom. You are not comfortable giving me a heter to redeem my son. Shekein ilu haya mutar b'li shum pikbuk, bevada haya only shemutar. Because if you were absolutely sure that I could redeem my son, you would have answered me without hesitation. Perusha shalav paragraph vav. Bishvili ki asr alai hadavar al pi halacha. Hadavar masrik bishvili. The man says, I guess my child will have to share the plight of the other boys in the block, because that is what Torah, that is what halacha says. And I accept your psak halacha with ava and with simcha. And I will do nothing to redeem my son. Because this is the psak of the Torah. Lo ha'ilu kol diburei elav, shal yoshis ha'achrayos alai. And Ramaz says, I begged him, please. I'm not giving you a psak halacha. I'm not telling you that you should not redeem your son. I can't paskin the shaila. Please do not go ahead and put the onus, put the responsibility of psak on me. Achu hichpil od pam diburim bebechia koras leiv. But he kept on repeating himself over and over with heartbreaking cries. He keeps saying, I know that if it was crystal clear according to the Rav that I could redeem my son, I know you would have given me that psak. But the fact that you haven't given me that psak tells me one thing and one thing only, which is that it's aser. And so I accept it. V'kim es devarav v'lo pada es bino. He accepted the quote-unquote psak, and he did not redeem his son. V'haya kala yom yom Rosh Hashanah holech umedaber li'atmo b'simcha. And remember again that day, which was the day of Rosh Hashanah, that father walked around saying to himself over and over, shezocha lahakriv es bino yichido laHashem. That he had the schus to offer up his one and only son to the Ribono Shel Olam. Ki af sheyesh b'yachalaso livdoso. Because even though he had the means to redeem his son, im kazos ein apodeo, he would not redeem him. Machmas roe shaTorah lo hitira lo la'asos kazos. Because it is clear, or at least it was clear to him, that the Torah did not permit him to go ahead and swap out his son to take someone else's son. V'yachoshid lifnei Hashem yisbarach ka'aked as Yitzchak Avinu. And the man kept saying, Ribono Shel Olam, the offering of my son should be like Akidas Yitzchak, which also occurred on Rosh Hashanah. And the power of this story is multifold. Number one, once again, the pain of parents and children. But this also serves to highlight an additional dynamic. The dynamic of the Mesiras Nefesh of Klal Yisrael. You know, I spoke about this. This was the dominant theme last year in our Kinnos about spiritual heroism and the godless of Klal Yisrael to be able to maintain a sense of dveikus, a sense of connection, even under the most trying, difficult, and barbaric of situations. But we see again a father who wants nothing more than to redeem his son, a father who has the means to redeem his son, and yet will not do it because he feels that he has received the psak. Because ultimately, again, he feels that he has received the psak from his Rebbe, not to redeem the child. What the halacha is, I don't know. What the psak is, I don't know. I don't know that it matters. I don't know that That's our goal today. But we see is the Emunah Pshuta, the simple faith of a father who literally was willing to give everything, including that which was most precious to him, his son. Kiddush Hashem. We'll say a Kinnos together. Take a look for a moment at Kinnos 26 on page 42 in your packet. In Kinnos 26, it's a very profound Kinnos that's based on the incredible medrash that when HaKadosh Baruch Hu destroyed the Beis HaMikdash, so he would not tell the Avos. He would not tell the Avos and the Emos. He would not inform the patriarchs and the matriarchs. And the reason for that is because he was scared that if he would tell them, they would lobby on Klal Yisrael's behalf, and they would try to convince HaKadosh Baruch Hu not to destroy the Beis HaMikdash. So he doesn't tell them. It's only when the Beis HaMikdash is destroyed, Klal Yisrael is being let out in chains, the nation is decimated. It's only then that Yirmiyahu goes to the Kvarim, to the graves of the Avos and the Emos. He awakens them. And he tells them, Ma osu ha'oivim. And of course we know it's a famous medrash. The Avos can't believe what has happened. They each try to lobby on behalf of Klal Yisrael. Avram, Sarah, Yitzchak, Rivka, Yaakov, Leah, everyone tries to lobby their case. We know that it's Rachel Imenu who is able to go ahead and lobby at least somewhat successfully on behalf of Klal Yisrael. And she says, Ribono shel olam, I know that my children have betrayed you. I know that my children have compromised the relationship. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I was willing to give so much for you, and I'm just a human being. Here HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And of course, the Ribono shel olam says to Rachel Imenu, Mini kolech mi bechi. Don't cry. HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells Rachel Imenu, don't worry. Yesh scharlu pulaseich v'shavu baram legulom. Your children will come home. You know, my friends, the last time I was at Kever Rachel, so I said to my children, as we were standing outside, everyone knows the story that Rachel Imenu was buried al haderech, on the pathway. She's not buried in Ras Machpelah. She's buried at what was in the middle of nowhere. You see Kever Rachel today, so it looks like it's in the middle of a fortress. But you know, when Rachel Imenu was, well, it is in the middle of a fortress now, but when Rachel Imenu was buried there, it was on the side of the road. There was nothing there. So why did Yaakov Avinu bury his beloved Rachel there? So Rashi HaKadosh says, because that was the path that Nebuchadnezzar led us out when he exiled us from Eretz Yisrael. We passed by Kever Rachel. Rachel Imenu comes out mevaka al baneha. She davens for us. She was buried there. Said when we would go out of Eretz Yisrael, she would be able to daven on our behalf. But you know, the Zohar brings down that there's another significance for that place. The same path we took going out is the same path we will take coming back in. So the next time you go to Kever Rachel and you stand outside of the Kever of Mama Rachel and you daven and you cry and you say to HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the schus of this great matriarch, help us. You're not only standing in the place where our ancestors left Eretz Yisrael, but you're standing in the very place where our ancestors are going to go back into Eretz Yisrael. See, the Jewish experience is always this dialectic. Our tsar and our happiness, our simcha, our avelus, our suffering and our joy are often locked in this duality, in this dialectic. The same places where there's so much tsar are the same places where we believe there'll be so much simcha. Kapitel 26, Kapitel Chavav, page 42 in the packet. Az baloch emiyalo kivleavos, gamatos chavios matem shokvos, nechem golu biskum b'charavos, v'ayei zuchus avos, kelet tormos, im kadam avru bris, v'yi zuchus kurusei bris, v'okul mikimim, achas rabbanim, תובעו בכל חנונים פני שופעים מעונים והי הבטחס וזכרתי להם בריס ראשונים מה אעשה לכם בניים כזין לפניים אם המירו כבודי בסוף ולא מחד ולא ראו עלים עיניים מהם ולא שבו ולא נאו אך אספר אמירס לבוא אם קדם עברו בריס היז חוס כבוסי בריס Zachar Avraham Bavram Chinein Bnei Olam Chinam Luseisi Aser Bechinos Avuram Chin Chazisi Shivram Vayavtachos Atzka Abram Ma'asa Lachem Alai Gizei Rafim Yafan Hai Tal Yizeros Lavados Zaros Yatzu Lachtzov Ba'aros Ba'aros Nishbaros Eich Asapek Abitmol Aseres Hadibros אם קלן עברו בריס, אייס חוס כרסי בריס. כל צבח יצחק בני שוכן שחק. עכשיו כי טבח הוכח מזרעי נשחק ונמחק. ואיי הבטחת בעז בריסי עקים עז יצחק. מה אעשה לכם בני כזרעים לפני. מרו מיריה כתיאום הר מוריה. וליסי נסוגי איה. אולה לימונשיה, ואיך אספח על הריגן סחריה. אם קדן עברו בריס, איה זכוס כרוסי בריס. סך יולד בסלף תמאוס כסני זולי. אולה לי אשר טיפחתי, ואלף איך גזו מלחלף, ואיך חפרו מני. מה עשה לכם בני גזירים לפני. התורה נאמר כפוש כעיוור מדומן, שונא שבחי כאמן, איך כזוב לו זמן, ואיה הבטחס כי לא אמן. אם קדן עברו בריס, איה זכוס כרוסי בריס. כל בחיליה נאסוף נפס, אך לבביה, וחלה חוסם לבקו על בניה, זיל מכה פניה. פילוהם נכונס בשתי ידיה, שובו צבינו למנוחסכם עלי עמלי כל משאבותיכם שולחתי בגב למענכם הנים ושובב קדוש בניכם
Share with you an incredible Maisa, and we'll say another Kinnos together. This is again from this Sefer Oraisa, which had an entire volume titled Acharei HaShoah, dedicated to issues after the war. And the title of the story is Rabbi Eliezer Silber, Mashkin Shalom, Ben Shimon Wiesenthal, L'Ribono Shalom. So this is actually a dramatic story that Rabbi Eliezer Silber, who was in America, the leading rabbanim in America, came to Europe after the war, and he did many things. First of all, he wanted to see to the spiritual needs of the survivors. So he made many trips to the various DP camps in an effort to see what was needed, what was necessary. So this story takes place over here when he went to one of the camps called Grossreusen. And when he went to the camp, a lot of the survivors from Buchenwald were there, and he asked what they needed. You know, Rabbi Eliezer Silber was also famous for many things. One of the things that he did is he knew that there were thousands upon thousands of children, Jewish children, who were hidden in convents, whose identity as Jews was quickly being erased. And he made it a point to go to different convents to be able to find, to be able to bring home the Jewish children. So this story is told where he went to this camp, this DP camp, with survivors from Buchenwald and from Mauthausen. And the story is told that he meets this individual. Actually, if you take a look, it's take a look at page 30, paragraph Dalid. His Ve'achar Mimei April 1945, Zman Kasar Lefnei Toma Melcham Be'Europa. So it comes to Simon. So Rabbi Eliezer Silber meets Simon Wiesenthal. Shimon Wiesenthal, the Simon Wiesenthal. Well, at this point in time, obviously, had not become the famed Nazi hunter, but obviously, again, was already a personality. And Rabbi Eliezer Silber is introduced to Wiesenthal as being a very important person, but also being someone who was incredibly antagonistic to religion. He didn't want anything to do with religion. So Rabbi Eliezer Silber goes over to Wiesenthal and he says, "You know what happened? Tell me your story. Tell me your story." So Wiesenthal tells him the following story: Ve'echad me'April, zman kasher lifnei Tom v'cham be'Europa, higia rakeves meHungaria leMauthausen. Just a little bit before, remember the Hungarian Jews were not deported until the end of the war, already until 1944. So there was a trainload of Hungarian Jews that arrives at Mauthausen. Rov hanosim hayu tishushim mutzakim, nira ki haya hanhalas hamachanek var vitra le muash, kevan shem shogru yishiros liblok hamaves, sheba ani ma'atzmi shayisi ba'oseis. And Wiesenthal says at this point in time, the Nazis weren't even interested in Jewish labor. They were just going to kill everyone who came in. So this group of Jews who came in from Hungary was just going to be sent right to their death. And Wiesenthal says, I was in one of these blocks where Jews were just waiting to die.
Bein Aboim Haya Rav Ungari Noda. Among the people who came, there was a very prominent, well-known Hungarian rabbi. His halcha shmua ki u'etzliach la'avriach l'toch machane harikuz sidur tefillah katan. And it became known that this Hungarian rabbi was able to smuggle in a small siddur. A siddur in Mauthausen, a siddur for Jews was like gold. Heratzti es harav al omes libo, bevada yada ki ha'eses henish komisha nitbas shumevi imo chafatzin kol shem ach mavesh shana o pisas ra'yishibor. So what happens? So he warned this rabbi, you know, it's punishable by death to have a siddur with you. Okay, so what happens? Paragraph Vav. Harav ba lechadrenu bayom ha'macharas kishor mita lamita. So the rabbi comes, goes to the barracks the next day, going from bed to bed. Rabbi minhag v'yem meirav hayu chalushim ach michdei sheyuchlu is ashiv al dagshem. Most people in the block were so weak they couldn't even sit up straight. Tiarti la'atzmi ki harav miskavi l'shocheach imam u'l'sapech lahem kol sa'ad ruchni. And Wiesenthal writes, I was inspired because I thought, here this Rav has just come to Mauthausen, and what is he doing? Biker cholim. He's coming to each of the beds, to each of the prisoners, trying to give them a little bit of chizuk. But that's not what happened. B'makom zos, Amar, ki yashil l'chol echa mehem es ha'sidr ha'tfila shalom, l'meshech chamesh esrei dakot. Instead, this Rav came with an offer. What was the offer? I'll let you use my siddur for 15 minutes. Demei ha'shala, but there's a rental fee. What's the rental fee? Yireva mimanas hamarak hayomit shakol asir. The rental fee is I want a quarter of your soup. Quarter of your soup ration. If you give me a quarter of your soup ration, I will give you 15 minutes. I'll give you 15 minutes with my siddur. Kara acha shal nozal mimi zehaya kol asher kibanu midei esrim va'arba shos. The soup ration was the only food we received for 24 hours. Achrabim hayu muchanan levate baratzan achilek mituchene shal kara zos ubilvat shia siddur biyadem lemeshech chamesh esrei dakot. Yet many Jews were willing to part with a quarter of their soup ration for 15 minutes with a siddur. Paragraph Zayin. Zeyasir katan v'shachor v'michsiku bein kapos yadeyim. It was a little tiny black siddur, and these prisoners held it in between their hands. Himayu chalushim michdei sheyuchal likrobo ach hasiddur hatvila ha'elu bahem zichronos emei yaldusam tvilo Shabbos beis hakneses kolo shal chazin. Some of the Jews were so weak that they could not even daven from the siddur, but to hold the siddur brought back so many beautiful memories. To hold the siddur brought them back to Shabbos, brought them back to the sounds of the chazan. Echal hagosesim b'chadrinu hayashofet asher himer estatov v'naseh katolis. He says, ach ata schar gam hu es hasid sachar gam hu es hasidra katan v'asa chamesh esrei dakos ikaros balas zichronos v'az masal rav reva mimanas hamarak shalom. Even people who were no longer religious held the siddur for 15 minutes and gave up a quarter of their soup ration. L'maisa, paragraph Ches. Halach harav le'olamu lifnei kol ha'acherim. Hakamos v'amugzamo shal marak hidgisha sa'asam m'bchinas ma'areches ha'ichol muchlech shalo hil nilkach me'imano ach habrios kim'at lo samu leiv lekach. So Wiesenthal says, the irony is this Hungarian rabbi, he died before everyone else. Okay, and all the extra soup that he had didn't really help him all that much. La'achar sheshichra nelkachnu lemachane hanofesh. So skip a little bit. So Rabbi Eliezer Silber comes in April of 1946. So turn to page 31, paragraph test. Amarti lididi ki ein ani omed lakachas chilek b'tekes hatfila. V'lo yacholti l'saper lahem ki shuv eini rotze liros rav li olam. So Rabbi Eliezer Silber comes to the DP camp, and the first thing he does is he arranges davening. He arranges a minyan. So Wiesenthal says, no thank you, I'm not coming. And in fact, he didn't want to say it. But he felt I'm happy never to see another rabbi in my life. I'm done with rabbis. Now why? What happened with Wiesenthal? He says, because lo yachalti lishkach es rodef habetza shehemir emuna b'mazon u'b'mokum lahagish sar legoses similas kreso b'marak shalahem katzti ba'anoshim me'ein eila. Wiesenthal said, I was sickened by the sight of that Rav who exploited the suffering of others. He could have done so much. He could have lifted their spirits. He could have been a source of chizuk for them. He could have been a source, but instead, what did he do? He used his siddur to extract a quarter of the portion of the only food they have. Wiesenthal said, I had a front row seat for this, and I was disgusted by it. So Rabbi Silber, welcome to the DP camp. Hatzlacha with your minyanim. I don't need anything to do with your minyan. I don't need anything to do with your rabbis. Ba'osa Laila. Ba Arav Eliezer Silber Li Rosani. So this is amazing. So this is Wiesenthal writing. He said, that night I had an unexpected guest. Who was my guest? Rav Eliezer Silber. Hayazeh Gever Namuch Kama. Rav Eliezer Silber was a very short man. Shalavash Midei Tzva Amerikanim. He was wearing American army fatigues. He was there with the army. Below Simani Daga Shalchayo, without any type of insignia for rank or greatness. Hayelo Zikan Kan Lavani had a long white beard. Ve'inav Abo Hakos Hi'iru Mitoch Tov Leif. And he had eyes which conveyed a beautiful purity of soul. Hu Hayel Fachos ben Shivim V'chamish. He must have been 75 years old at the time. Ach Mocho Hayel Charif. His mind was sharp. V'kolo kol shel tza'ir liyamim. He had a strong voice like a young man. Who siper li ki nolad ba'Ukraina. He told me that he was born in the Ukraine. Eretz ha'pogromim, the land of the pogroms. Ve'hikir biyoso na'ar l'America. Eretz ha'tikva. And when he was a young boy, his family emigrated to America. Hu hiniach es yado al kaspi. So Rabbi Eliezer Silber puts his hand on Simon Wiesenthal's shoulder. Ubechem mesaprim li ki ata breiges im Elokim. What does he say to Simon Wiesenthal? They tell me that you're breiges with God. They tell me you're breiges with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Amar b'Yiddish v'cheich l'umasi. So I said to him in Yiddish and I smiled. Amar ki ein ani shay breiges im Elokim ila im echad mimar sharasav. So Wiesenthal says, I'm not breiges with God. I'm just breiges with some of the people who work for him. Not breiges with the Kadosh Baruch Hu. God's just fine. I'm just breiges with some of the people who are supposed to be his ambassadors. Specifically one of them. V'siparti lo es ha'sha'ira. And I told Rabbi Eliezer Silber exactly about what happened with the Hungarian Rav who exploited the needs of others in an effort to enrich himself with a meager portion of soup. Hu hosif l'chayich b'shal. He said, so what happens? After he told Rabbi Eliezer Silber the story, so Eliezer smiled and he said, V'zeh kol ma sheyesh lecha l'saper li? Is that it? That's your whole story you have for me? Hein zeh maspik, Rabbi? Sha'ati b'chazara? To which Wiesenthal said, Rabbi, does there need to be more than a story? So get ready for Rabbi Eliezer Silber's response. Shote shekemoscha amar. Rabbi Eliezer says to Simon Wiesenthal, for such a smart man, you're exceptionally foolish. Obechin anat in atazocher ela es ha'ish hara shenatal mashu min ha'anashim hatovim. Why are you only remembering the one guy who did something bad? Why are you only remembering the one person who exploited the suffering of others for his own gain? Madua lo tizaker b'malkum zeh ba'anashim hatovim shenasnu mashu li'ish hara. Why don't you remember all of the Jews who are willing to give up a little bit of their soup to what? To what? Some of them to daven, and some of them just to hold on to the siddur. Lama lo tisrashe me'ila ha'umlamim v'anitkoim ad afar shayu nechodem limsoras minas hamarak ha'olov shalohem rak shia noza l'chaim hayichidi ba'os hasha. Why don't you remember those Jews who were willing to take some of their soup, the only form of sustenance, the only form of life they had, and they are willing to give that up. B'tmura l'shimush hasidur u'le'efsharus le'espalo mitocho v'lu dakos achiros. All they wanted to do was to hold the siddur, to daven from just for a few moments. Why are you focusing on the one guy who did something bad? And what about the hundreds who are willing to give up their soup, some too weak to daven, just for the schus to hold on to a siddur? Are you focusing on the one person who did something bad? Why aren't you focusing on the hundreds who are most nefesh for HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Who naga bi b'kat yoda prusha v'yatza. He touched my cheek, he touched me with his open hand. The macharas hishtatafti b'tekes hatfila. Wiesenthal says, the next morning, I was at davening. Me'az osayom nisisi lizkar tamid ki yesh shtei panim l'chol matbea. Wiesenthal says, from that day on, from that exchange with Rabbi Shmuel Silber, I remembered that there are two sides to every single coin. Im ki li'itim kasha lahavchin b'pena echad ha'acher mamish kefi shekasha liras es ha'pena acher shel hayareach. So Wiesenthal says, from that day I learned from Rabbi Shmuel Silber that in almost every single situation there is a choice about how we choose to view a particular circumstance. I could see the worst in humanity, or I could choose to see the best in humanity. I chose to see someone who abused a position of authority and a simple possession to exploit the soup of others. But what I should have really focused on are the Jews who are willing to give up life itself to be able to daven from a precious siddur for just a few moments. And my friends, this is an important part for us to remember over the course of our Tisha B'Av. Because it's on this day when we mourn so much loss that we also remember the incredible sacrifices that our ancestors have made for Yiddishkeit. The Mesiras Nefesh that our ancestors have made for the sake of HaKadosh Baruch Hu and His Torah. We sometimes complain, davening is a little too long, davening is a little too short, daf yomi is a little too early, tuition is so expensive. These are all legitimate things. But in the context and in the spectrum of the sacrifices our ancestors have made for Yiddishkeit, the privilege we have to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu with absolute and unequivocal ease. You'll excuse me, but there is no challenge today. Baruch Hashem. We don't have the challenge because the challenge was weathered by those who came before us. There are other challenges in life, many challenges in life. But our ability to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu b'nachos, we don't have that challenge anymore. It's easy for us. Our Yiddishkeit has been delivered to us on the silver platter. It's a silver platter that we only have because of the incredible sacrifice of those who came before us. But it's a silver platter nevertheless. One of the things we take from Tisha B'Av is a redoubling of our efforts to become better. A redoubling of our efforts to become holier. A redoubling of our efforts to come closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. To daven more, to learn more, to be greater Ba'alei Chesed, to be more empathic, to be more sensitive. Why? Because we can. Because if the Jews of yesteryear were able to do it despite horrific suffering and horrible circumstances, then all the more so we can do it. When Baruch Hashem, we don't have the same level or enormity of challenges. We're going to recite now the Kinnos of Arzei Halavano, which is Kinnos number 21 on page 52 in the packet. And the reason I wanted to do this Kinnos now, Arzei Halavano speaks about the Asarei Harugei Malchus, speaks about the 10 martyrs, 10 rabbis who were killed under Hadrianic persecution. They were not all murdered at once, they were murdered over a span of time. We talk about the Asarei Harugei Malchus twice throughout the year. Once on Yom Kippur and once on Tisha B'Av. And in reality, we speak about them for two dramatically different reasons at those two different times. Yom Kippur, we speak about the Asarei Harugei Malchus because we have the concept, it's actually, I mentioned this in one of the shiurim, We speak about them in the middle of the section of Musaf, that is the Avodah, the sacrificial service. Because you have the concept of Misas Tzadikim Mechaber. Similarly, that Karbanos atone, the death of the righteous atone as well. So you read it on Yom Kippur for the atonement factor. On Tisha B'Av, we read it because we remember that we lost everyone. We lost simple people, we lost adults, we lost children, and we lost our Arze Halavanon. We lost great leaders. And sometimes in different periods of history, it was Dafka, those leaders that were often targeted for the greatest amount of barbaric treatment, those leaders which ultimately became the lightning rod for the oppressive and barbaric behavior of our tormentors. So we should have in mind that as we go ahead and we recite this Kinnos of Arze HaLevanon, the great cedar trees of the Lebanon, a reference to our great tzaddikim. The great tzaddikim are not just people who have the title rabbi in front of their name. The great tzaddikim of our people are not just the people whose biographies or whose stories are written. The Arze HaLevanon, the cedars of Klal Yisrael, are those who are Moshe Nefesh. The Arze HaLevanon are those precious Jews in Mauthausen who are willing to give up a quarter of their soup ration for the sake of holding a precious siddur, for the sake of davening for just a few moments. The Arze HaLevanon are the little Meir Gustmans. The Arze HaLevanon are our great people, even though for most of them and for even many of them, we have never and may never know their names. Page 52, Kinnos 21, Arze HaLevanon. Arze HaLevanon, Avilei HaTorah, Alei Tchisin, Mishnei Gemara, Giborei Koach, Amalei B'Tara, Tamam Nishpach, Kamayim, Tamam Nishpach, Kamayim, Ashkan Gemara, Inam Genu Sheher Yemam Sasara, Pareva Nibach Yor, Ni Ura, Zor, Zulahi Azor, Saat Gamala, Femda, Zisra, Fakunesh, Ezebatara, Torah Leib, Pachi, Kadosh, Shkivasim, Sakamura, Yadro, Gura, Yeshon, Abdullah, Fogura, Araman Shimon, Shatabah, Kizar Zira, Rabbi Shmuel, Chazar, Hagmon, Hardop, Nefesh, Mitzvah. Nizera, Halon, Shalom, Hashem, the Kos, Ben Zira, Not to the Rosh, Mesnat, the Sahavia, Satavia. So in love, I'm in love, the people of Piv, I'm in love. I'm a rock, my plan is Kaberis, or Kisom, the Kiso, I love the Son of Shalom, I'm in love. Siva, love, sheep, it's for sure, I'm in love. Sarah, Sira, Cave, Olo, Amun, Abshelo, Abshek, Sifi, Ben Abuna, Rasha, Poshek, Isagia, and Komtfilin, Sabara, Shimon, Sa'atab, Nivnazo, Olam, versus Bora. Hamod, supposed to the rose, called right now. Neachara, the Bia Shavia Kibo. Okay, we're talking about Zubisfara. As Bisaram, the Sanke, Masren, Kamazon, Ishmara. Yatison, Ishmasim, Echanu, as Kamara. Rabbi Akiva, Shef, Aguf, Kotar, Komitara. And Baba Rabu, Achara, Hebiu. Shibon, Eva, Sara. Herag ben Shirim Shana, the Yerishim Allah. Yosh, Emithen Eschaya, Nakas, Maftos, Hanano, Alzim Shrajo, Nakala, Akil Kinnos, Sion Shara. Yosh, Evdorish, Sevatur, Kiva Behaviz Mura, Esper Sebahan, Bukhrahu, Sefer Torah, Baru Havara. The Libon, the Sifogin, shall sever the Libon, Shlemus Mena, Constitution. Zirakubo, Vichin, Vishnu, Naku, Logman, Kura, Kol, Mazilazama, Shanit, Nicolas Moshe, Shana, Rekana, Rekana, Ben Fakim, Rekana. It was Oriana, יום ערב שבת זמן קידוש מקדש ידינו ערב שוקולה ומניחו בחיים וניסאים רצון נשמסה יצר צורה הנה כהן אבינו סיכון אדם אני אמנון ונצביע סכים סופה סמסונו אכלו מקום קדוש כהגות קשון וזכרה חזה הצרופה ושוקג'ומה תפלאים אכלילות כתוב לימי עליזם ויסיף כביוסו אם יצחיים כושלוס חנב יעקב משה וישראל תלך כמלך מלך משמי מעלה וניסו בני בני I'm going to ask you to skip to page 36. And page 36 in your booklet is, I think, a very, very moving story. Very moving story in Rabbi Lau's biography. So Rabbi Lau writes in his biography, Out of the Depths, he writes about different stories from different stages in his life. So he writes over here, coming to Tisha, becoming chief rabbi. It's a little bit of a long piece, but I think it's such an incredible, moving account. So if you see, it's on page 36, right where you see that little arrow. During my term as chief rabbi, the first intifada broke out, bringing with it terror attacks that destroyed many precious lives. Thousands of wounded were hospitalized and permanently scarred. I got to know most of them. For some, I performed wedding ceremonies or attended bar mitzvah celebrations. While most were hospitalized in Jerusalem and in the center of the country, my visits to see them took me to all hospitals in Israel. Among the countless stories of lives cut off during the Intifada, I was especially touched by a family with whom I developed a meaningful relationship. The roots of our connection lay in my term as chief rabbi of Netanya, when I became acquainted with Yosef Friedman, an immigrant from Hungary, a Torah scholar and intellectual, who had single-handedly established a vinegar factory in Netanya's old industrial zone. Both he and his wife were Holocaust survivors, and they raised a small family. Yosef Friedman attended the Talmud classes that I gave at the Beit Meir synagogue and contributed to the cultural life of the city's religious community. After I was elected chief rabbi of Netanya, he called me and said that his eldest daughter Tzivia was getting married. Although we had known each other only for a short time, he asked me to perform the ceremony. I asked about the groom's family, and he told me the future son-in-law, Mordechai Shaivas Chuder, came from a family who lived in Holland, and that he had made Aliyah on his own. I remembered that tongue twister of a name. One day, about 20 years later, my secretary in the chief rabbi's office in Jerusalem informed me that a man with a name difficult to pronounce had called, asking to meet with me to discuss an educational matter. She transferred the call, and on the line was the very same Mordechai or Mati Shaivas Chuder, whose wedding I had performed so many years previously. I had invited him to my office and asked about his family. He said that he and his wife were blessed with many children, and that they lived in Neria Talmon, in the Shomron region, in the ancient territory of the biblical tribe of Binyamin. He had a business importing chemicals from Holland, and his wife commuted every day to Jerusalem to teach in the ultra-Orthodox school for children with hearing disabilities called Shema Kolinu. Dissatisfied with the religious education his children were receiving, Mati had decided to abandon his import business and establish a regional Talmud Torah. He named the school after his father Yosef Shaivas Chuder, a leader of Agudas Yisrael in Holland, borrowing a phrase from Psalms, Noah Katzon Yosef. He asked if I would come to speak at the school to give support. If you skip a little bit, at the bottom of that page. In July 2001, almost 1 year after the second Intifada began, at 2 in the afternoon, a suicide bomber blew himself up in a crowded pizza restaurant, Sbarro, in the heart of Jerusalem. 15 people were killed and about 100 injured. At 9 that evening, the phone rang in my home in Tel Aviv, and the voice of a young woman choked with tears spoke on the other end of the line. I'm calling from Bikur Cholim Hospital in Jerusalem. Do you remember Tzivia Shaivas Chuder? This is her sister speaking. Tzira was killed today at the Sparrow restaurant. Her husband Mati was also killed. It's summer vacation, so they took a day off and went to Jerusalem with the kids. They went into Sparrow to have pizza for lunch. 3 of the 5 children with them in the restaurant were killed. Rahaya, Avram Yitzchak, and Chemda. The youngest was 2 years old, and the oldest 14. The 3 older boys were saved. 2 were in the army, and the 3rd was not with the family. The 2 little girls that survived, Leila and Chayla, are wounded and hospitalized. After the shock subsided, I asked whether Tzira's parents knew about the terrible disaster, and if so, how they were responding to the dreadful news. She said that the parents were in Netanya and that they had needed medical treatment for shock. The parents had recalled that I had performed Mati and Tzira's wedding and had asked if I would eulogize them at a funeral that was to take place the next morning at 10 on Har HaMenuchos in Jerusalem. Of course, I agreed to their request. How can one describe the funeral of a father, a mother, and their 3 young children? How can one comprehend the 5 stretchers side by side, 2 covered with a talus, and 3 draped in the Israeli flag? How is it possible to look into the eyes of Leah, a girl of 10, as she observes the stretchers of her family members while she herself lies on a hospital bed, bandages covering her entire body, a doctor on one side and a nurse on the other? Leah had insisted on attending the funeral of her parents and siblings. The hospital personnel had agreed to this exceptional outing, bearing in mind that if she did not go, she might never forgive herself. Apprehensive and heavy-hearted, the staff allowed the wounded girl to go to the funeral along with her hospital bed, her intravenous drip, and her indescribable pain, both physical and emotional. I stood before her. My eyes met hers and I could not utter a word. I could only cry out. How long shall the wicked, O Lord, how long shall the wicked triumph? After a moment of silence, I recalled a medrash of the sages. We stood on the banks of the Sea of Reeds, surrounded by enemies. After 4 generations of slavery, forced labor, and evil decrees, said Uzzah, ministering angel of Egypt in the heavenly host, Master of the universe, Israel doesn't deserve a miracle. My children, the Egyptians, do not deserve to drown in the sea. What difference is there between the two? One is a nation of idol worshippers, and so is the other. At that point, Michael, the ministering angel of Israel, Israel's advocate on high, gave a sign to Gabriel. Gabriel swooped down to Egypt and removed bricks of mortar and clay from the wall of Pitom and Ramses, finding a Jewish infant stuck inside. When the Hebrew slaves did not manage to finish the work quota on time, the Egyptian taskmasters would grab the Jewish babies from their homes and push them into the walls, just to fulfill the quota of bricklaying. Gabriel placed the tiny body in Michal's arms. When Michal put the baby on the arm of the balance, the body of the cruelly murdered infant outweighed the entire nation. What is happening right now in the heavenly host? I asked in my eulogy. When Avram, Chemda, and Ra'aya go up to heaven, 5 members of one family, 5 cruelly murdered young ones. How old was Mati? How old was Sira? They are at the beginning of their lives. He was an educator, she taught the disabled, and together they raised a family of 8 children on their own. Now more than half of this family had been destroyed. 2 days after the funeral, I went to visit the wounded from the Sparrow attack, who were in Shaarei Tzedek Hospital. I tried to speak to a girl of 16 who was severely wounded. I was sitting in Sparrow with 2 friends, she said, when we were eating pizza. Beside us were 2 tables joined together. A big family sat there, the father, the mother, and all the kids. Suddenly, all of a sudden, we heard a terrible boom and saw frightening flames. In a second, I felt that I was burning. I heard the man sitting with his family at the table next to me say, "Children, children, say Shema Yisrael out loud with me." They said it. And then there was heavy silence. And I awoke in the hospital. That horrifying image stuck in my mind. Mati Shaivas Chuder knew that his family was going to die. And he made sure that the last words that came from the mouths of his young children were Shema Yisrael. I recalled my father as he entered the gas chambers in Treblinka, along with the Jewish communities of Piotrkov and Preshov, the words of Shema Yisrael on his lips. The day after my visit to Shaarei Tzedek, I went to visit the surviving members of the Shaivas Chuder family. The children had decided to sit Shiva in the Riyah, in the home their parents had built. In the middle of the afternoon prayer, an ambulance stopped at the door of the house, and Leah, supported by attendants on both sides, came inside. She had insisted on being released from the hospital in order to sit Shiva for a few days with her siblings. Hours later, I rose to leave but could not bring myself to say goodbye. I stopped beside her. I asked about her sister, who was also in the hospital. And Leah told me that before leaving, she had gone down to the intensive care unit to tell Chaya she was going home. She knows that you spoke at Mom and Dad's funeral, Leah said to me. She also knows that you conducted their wedding ceremony. We've seen your picture often in the wedding albums, and Grandpa Friedman has also spoken of you many times. Chaya asked me to send regard to all the visitors, and added that Rabbi Lau would also certainly come to visit. She asked that you visit her in the hospital. Remind him that it's just as much of a mitzvah to visit the sick as it is to comfort the mourners. Ask him to come visit me too. The first thing I did the next morning was to visit Chaya in her hospital room. Her face was burned, her arms and legs broken, and despite the quantities of morphine she had received, she was obviously suffering intense pain. Feeling helpless, I wondered what I could say to her. Spontaneously, I found myself telling her a story without naming the protagonist. I know a boy of 8 who lost his father and mother. But unlike you, who are lucky to have a grandfather or grandmother, he had only one brother, until he came to Eretz Yisrael and discovered he had another brother here. You, however, have 3 brothers and a sister. This 8-year-old boy came to Israel without knowing Hebrew, without knowing anyone, except for his older brother. But you, everyone in Israel knows and loves you. Everyone has heard about the terrible thing that has happened to your family. And they are sending you lots of love from all ends of the country. Everyone is waiting for you to stand on your feet and to leave the hospital healthy. I heard that the Prime Minister visited you here, and the Minister of Education, Limor Livnat, brought you a book of Psalms and a teddy bear. During my visit yesterday at your home, I met Mr. Moshe Katsav, President of the state. There are expressions of love. Unlike your situation, almost no one waited for that 8-year-old boy I told you about. Almost no one knew of his existence. The authorities of the emerging state did not know about him, and they certainly did not love him. But still he managed. He didn't give up. He didn't cry over his bitter fate, and he didn't feel sorry for himself. He tried to rebuild his life in a new country as best as he could. At that moment, to my total surprise, the girl said, I know. That boy was you. And so I replied, take an example from my personal story. It was a short conversation. With the staff of doctors escorting me, I felt uncomfortable continuing, and it was difficult for her as well, as talking was a superhuman effort. At that moment, not an eye was dry. Not an eye in the room was dry. A few months later, the family asked me to perform the wedding of Chaya's older brother. It was a very emotional ceremony. The groom walked up to the wedding canopy without a father or mother. Instead, the Friedman grandparents and grandmother Shaivas Chuder from Holland led him to the chuppah, along with aunts and uncles. Everyone was crying, and they were tears of pain as well as happiness. Little Chaya and her sister Leah came up to me. If not for their tears, I could hardly believe that these were the same 2 girls who had recently been orphaned, had mourned their 3 siblings, and had suffered terrible physical injuries. These charming girls knew how to rejoice, I knew they would be all right. Like the boy in the story I told Chaya when she was in the hospital. And as we begin to close out our Kinnos for this morning, this story I think is important for us, not only because it goes ahead and highlights the incredible resilience of Klal Yisrael. Well, first, the pain of Klal Yisrael, but it's the resilience that the little children who we focused on so much, who have suffered so much, still laugh. That the people who have been battered and brutalized so much still thrive. And that although we've spent our morning in mourning, crying, desperately trying to connect with the losses of our people, Chatzos has come, midday has come. We are permitted to once again get up. We are permitted to stand up, to stand straight, to sit up on normal chairs, to begin to dust ourselves off, to go forward with the incredible knowledge that although we have suffered much, not only is there a future, but that future will be bright, that future will be beautiful, that future will be brilliant. If you take a look at number 19 for the last piece, before we recite Kitzion together, a beautiful piece by the great tzaddik, the Kleisenberger Rebbe. Sans Kleisenberger Rebbe lost everything in the war. A wife, 11 children. And he is the epitome of Jewish strength, the ability to rebuild in the aftermath of unspeakable horror and tragedy. And the Rebbe writes as follows, and with this we'll conclude. His Bidrasha Achos Kishehiskires Godol Atzaros Asher Gozru Tzorei Yehudim Lisrof Bekivshanim Komi Shebeshem Yisrael Yechuna Afilu Misha Kvar Yishtam Rabbi Yotza Zeh Mikam Klal Yisrael. So he quotes the Rebbe who says, Kishiyabo Bekarov Mashiach Tzidkenu V'niske L'Geula Shlema. Mashiach comes and there's Gula, there's redemption. Yokum Bevadai HaMekatrig V'yomer the Ribono Shalom Sheyigal Rakas Misha Shamru Yahagusam Av Kisher Kivushim Begola. So the Rebbe says, there's always someone or something to advocate against Klal Yisrael. Page 33, source 19. So the Rebbe says when Mashiach comes, the Mekatreg, the prosecuting angel, will stand up and say, not everyone deserves Geula. Only those Jews that maintained allegiance and fidelity to you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, deserve to be redeemed. Only those who kept their commitment to you, even in the worst of circumstances, deserve redemption. The others do not. Ach HaKadosh Baruch Hu yashiv lo as hatshuva nitzchis. The Rebbe Shalom will respond and he says, B'mei ha'ariga nechshevu kulam liYehudim tovim. When it came to destruction and decimation, all of the Jews were treated the same. We were all treated as Jews. V'lo hevdel bein ovid Elokim la'asher lo avdo. There was no distinction made between the one who served, the one who observed, the one who was religious, and the one who was not. V'nitnu kulam lahashmit laharog ula'abeit. We were all together during times of destruction and annihilation. V'yata sheba gu'ulasam lo yichashvu Yehudim. So what do you think? Says the Kleisenberger Rebbe. When HaKadosh Baruch Hu when the enemies of the Jews wanted to destroy us, we were all grouped together. And do you think that when HaKadosh Baruch Hu redeems us, He's going to start making chaburas? He's going to start making kehilas? He's going to say, you're in, you're out? If during times of destruction we were together, then certainly during times of geula, we will be together as well. Ke'en sha'amru Ad shel yomar osa tzadik v'avdun v'inu osam kaim bohem perush bohem kimo shehem v'lo avchana v'hevla ben tzadik l'rasha kimo ken yetzu b'rechush gadol o kiyam bohem mikana talamar shekeshem shenechbeshu alalu Yehudim tovim l'shibud l'harog u'la'abed. Therefore said the Sans Kleisenberger Rebbe the same way that all of the Jews were good Jews when it came to the edicts of destruction and annihilation. כך יחשבו ליהודים טובים, לגאולה וישוע ולכל יהודי הנביא לאחרית הימים. So too said the Rebbe, every Jew, whatever they do observe, don't observe, they do know, don't know, do affiliate, doesn't affiliate, doesn't make a difference. If we were all Yehudim Tovim, for death and destruction, we'll all be Yehudim Tovim, for Geula as well. Yacheinu kol beis Yisroel, Yacheinu kol beis Yisroel, Hanesonim atzavana, atzara u'mashivya, omdim ein bayam, b'ashar. Hacheinu kol beis Yisroel, Hacheinu kol beis Yisroel, Hanesonim atzavana, atzara u'mashivya, omdim ein bayam, with Kinnos 45, Elitzion. Elitzion me'areho, kimo isha b'tzileho, v'chipsu lo chagurasot, ava le'oreho, aveyamu asher utosh, yashmaso. should be zocha, that our Kinnos and our tefillah should be niskabel. Al-Havai we should be zocha l'shana haba b'Yushalayim Avniyah. Mincha begins in 10 minutes at 1:30.